My husband drowned in a tragic accident. While sorting through his belongings, I found a photocopied property deed tucked between magazines. When I stepped into that apartment, I was utterly stunned. The interior was romantically decorated with lavish furniture, exquisite carpets, and dust-covered crystal chandeliers that still sparkled brilliantly. It was worlds apart from the shabby, cramped old place we called home. The wall displayed framed photos of him with his first love and their twin children. On the desk lay a hastily scribbled suicide note, "Sanguine, since your illness took you from me, each day has been hellish torment beyond endurance. Now that I've fulfilled my filial duties and our children are grown, I've no regrets. May we reunite beyond the Yellow Springs." I staggered backward out of the room. Right now I just want to dig up his grave, overwhelmed by rage. I felt blood surging through my veins until I coughed up blood and blacked out, collapsing backward. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the 10th year of my marriage. 1. The police informed me about my husband Lin Yuzhou's body being found at Shishan Reservoir while I was working overtime at the office, handling last-minute client revisions to the project, over 40 with hormonal imbalances, yet still grinding away at my desk like an old workhorse past 10 p.m. My resentment at this moment could outmatch any ghosts. My gut reaction upon hearing this news was, "This has to be a scam." I snapped, "Piss off. Scammers deserve their whole family wiped out." The person showed no sign of anger. In a cold, practiced tone, he recited his police badge number and explained that night fishermen had discovered my husband's body, along with his ID card. He requested my immediate presence at the scene to assist with necessary procedures. With lingering doubts, I hung up the phone. While driving to Shishan Reservoir, I kept trying to reach Lin Yuzhou, but his phone remained switched off. 40 minutes later, I arrived at the location reported by the police. The night was pitch black. The sound of rushing water and unidentified animal cries from the reservoir sent chills down my spine. Staggering unevenly, I stumbled toward the solitary glimmer of light. There I saw him, rigid as stone, stretched straight along the riverbank. He wore his usual white shirt and black dress pants, now soiled beyond recognition. His shoes were gone, bare feet crisscrossed with lacerations. Blood trickled from all 7 orifices. When I recognized his face, my entire body froze as if struck by lightning. It was truly my husband, Lin Yuzhou. 2. Based on crime scene investigation, autopsy, and surveillance footage near the reservoir, homicide has been ruled out in Lin Yuzhou's case. The forensic report detected alcohol in his system, concluding his death as accidental drowning while intoxicated. Upon learning of their father's death, his son and daughter rushed back from abroad, overwhelmed by grief. My blood pressure spiked repeatedly until I collapsed and was eventually admitted to the ICU. His children single-handedly arranged all the funeral arrangements for their father. By the time I was discharged from the hospital, Lin Yuzhou had already been laid to rest. It wasn't until our children took me to Lin Yuzhou's gravesite that I realized with shock they'd buried him alongside their biological mother Sang-won, but they'd been divorced for over 20 years. I turned blankly to the children standing beside me. Lin Xiao said calmly, "This was my father's wish." As she spoke, she pulled a document from her bag and handed it to me. "This is Dad's will. The lawyer gave it to my brother and me after we returned to China. You should read it too." My hands trembled as I took it. As Lin Xiao mentioned, being buried alongside Sang-won was indeed stipulated in Lin Yuzhou's will. Lin Xiao continued beside them. "The last page outlines the asset distribution. All life insurance policies under my father's name designate my brother and me as beneficiaries. His investment funds and stocks, acquired before marrying you, constitute his personal assets. These were also willed to us. As for the old family home," Lin Xiao paused briefly. "Dad allocated your rightful 50% share to you, but you'll need to compensate us at market value for the remaining half. Alternatively, you may sell the property and split the proceeds equally with my brother and me." Lin Zhe, who had remained silent all this while, turned his gaze toward me, with a hint of guilt in his expression. His lips quivered slightly as he said, "Mom, Chia Chiao and I got our green cards. After we settle everything, we won't be coming back to China. Please take care of yourself." I stared in disbelief at the 2 children I'd raised for 20 years, unaware of when the tears had started streaming down my face. My throat constricted painfully, my voice reduced to a hoarse whisper. How could you do this to me? I've been married to Lin Yuzhou for 20 solid years, became stepmother to 5-year-old twins Lin Zhe and Lin Xiao. I loved my husband deeply, weathering every storm together, cared for the children with all my heart, honored my in-laws with unwavering devotion, but in the end, they played me for a complete fool. 3. Staggering home, I weakly pushed open the door. Everything inside remained exactly as Lin Yuzhou had left it when he was alive. We've lived in this house for nearly 20 years, bought it as a second-hand property the year after we got married, using my parents' dowry money. The place is over 30 years old now, worn out and shabby. The interior space is less than 80 square meters. It once housed 5 of us, including my mother-in-law. All these years, I've been scrimping and saving to put Lin Zhe and Lin Xiao through school abroad, and to cover my mother-in-law's monthly dialysis treatments for her chronic kidney failure. I kept tightening my belt, always telling myself things would get better, that everything would work out fine, only to realize in the end that I was just their family's doormat all along. My eyes were as hollow as stagnant water as I mechanically sorted through Lin Yuzhou's belongings like a puppet on strings, ready to discard everything. While cleaning out his wardrobe, I stumbled upon a magazine buried beneath layers of clothing. Tucked between its pages was a yellowed sheet, a photocopy of a property deed. The homeowner's name read Lin Yuzhou. I followed the address and found the place. After checking my ID, the locksmith helped me open that door. The moment I stepped inside, I was utterly stunned. This was unmistakably Lin Yuzhou and Sang Wan's love nest, with walls adorned by numerous family photos of them with their twin children. The house had a romantic and cozy decor style, exquisite furniture, opulent carpets, and crystal chandeliers that still sparkled despite the dust. It was worlds apart from the cramped, dilapidated old place we called home. With great effort, I shuffled forward and pushed open the master bedroom door. The spacious room featured a walk-in closet, vanity dresser, king-sized bed spanning 3 meters, and a sunlit bay window. The meticulously organized clothes in the walk-in closet radiate luxury. Next door was Lin Yuzhou's study. The sight before me felt like a dagger through the heart. These walls chronicled their family of 4's joyful journey, traversing the world's most breathtaking landscapes from their children's elementary years through college. All destinations I'd dreamed of but could never justify splurging on. I collapsed into the chair before my desk. On the unfolded paper lay a handwritten line. Sangwon, since your passing 2 years ago, each day has been hellish torment beyond endurance. Now my filial duties are fulfilled, our children grown, I've no lingering attachments. May we reunite beyond the Yellow Springs. This was no drunken accident. He'd followed her in death. I tore that paper to shreds in a frenzy. 4. After what felt like eternity, I heaped myself up using my knees for support, staggering blindly toward the exit. Right now, all I want is to dig up Lin Yuzhou's grave with my bare hands. Rage burned through my veins like wildfire, until bitter resentment forced a gush of blood from my mouth. Darkness swallowed my vision as I collapsed backward. 5. When my eyes fluttered open again, I found myself seated before a lavish banquet amidst deafening clamor. The clatter of dishes and boisterous laughter crashed over me like tidal waves. It took me a while to snap out of my daze and recall this was the thank you banquet for Lin Zhe and Lin Xiao after their high school entrance exams. Both were admitted to the city's top high school after the exams. Not only was their 3-year tuition fully waived, but they each received a 6,000 yuan scholarship. At this moment, Lin Yuzhou was making rounds with the 2 teenagers, toasting relatives and friends table by table. Everyone praised Professor Lin Yuzhou for raising 2 such outstanding children, just what you'd expect from a university scholar. Sitting beside her mother-in-law, Sangwon watched the father and his children with a proud smile, visibly sharing in their glory. I picked up the glass of red wine before me and drained it in one gulp. The chilled liquid, slightly tarred as it slid down my throat, left no doubt. This was no dream. Still dazed, I heard a sour voice beside me. Wen Yen, you're truly blessed. Even with your ruined reputation back then, you still managed to marry such a wonderful husband like Shige, skipping the pains of childbirth without a uterus, yet gaining such outstanding children. How enviable. I turned toward the voice. The speaker was He Yuan, Lin Yuzhou's junior by 2 years from their university days. She now teaches at the same university as him, sharing the philosophy department with Lin Yuzhou. Her voice carried loudly, reaching many ears in the room. Sangwon arched an eyebrow and smirked in their direction, clearly anticipating some drama. He Yuan clicked her tongue. Talk about dumb luck. Rumor has it your dad couldn't even pay a dowry apartment to marry you off 10 years ago. Who'd have thought Senior would be this blind? With all those women chasing him, he somehow picked you. Makes no damn sense. Watching her face contort with jealousy, I found it both laughable and pitiful. Rumor has it she'd secretly loved Lin Yuzhou for years, only for her best friend Sangwon to steal him away. By the time she found out, Sangwon was already 2 months pregnant. That was the end of their friendship. Later, He Yuan married someone else with a heavy heart. shortly after her wedding, Sangwon abruptly divorced Lin Yujo, abandoning both husband and child to flee abroad. 6. He Yuan never quite got over her regret at failing to marry Lin Yujo. That's why she kept targeting me. Reopening old wounds whenever she could. There was a time when I too felt ashamed of my past, always keeping my head down and swallowing my pride. She'd said these very words in our past life, but I'd endured them then. At our children's graduation banquet were their teachers, classmates, and some of Lin Yujo's colleagues. I didn't want to make a scene and become the butt of jokes, but none of that matters now. I slammed my chopsticks on the table and snapped back. Damn right I'm lucky. Jealous I married Lin Yujo. Want me to pass this blessing to you, that way your decade-long crush won't go to waste, and you'll stop skulking around making snide remarks about me being unworthy of him. He Yuan's face instantly drained of color as she shot a panicked glance toward her husband. Wen, have you lost your mind? What nonsense are you spouting? I sneered, making it up. Those flirty texts you sent Lin Yujo. Those lovesick eyes you'd bat at him. Think I'm blind? Bringing up my past assault every damn time. Wasn't the whole point to humiliate me? Yeah, I was assaulted, tortured so badly they had to remove my uterus. But guess what? Lin Yujo still begged to marry me. Got a problem? Take it up with him. All eyes turned toward me. He Yuan's husband fixed her with an inscrutable stare. Lin Yujo hurried over with quick strides. He shot He Yuan a furious glare. Then he grabbed my arm and hissed through gritted teeth. Do you realize what day this is? Why bring up those old grudges in front of everyone? I wrenched my arm free with an icy expression. What did I even say? She's the one who keeps provoking me first. Are you blind or something? He Yan's husband walked over to her with a stormy expression. He yanked the woman up from her chair, then forced an awkward smile at me and Lin Yujo. Sis, Professor Lin, my apologies. I just got an urgent call from work. Yan, and I have to head back now. We'll visit properly another time. With that, he dragged He Yan away hastily, his face dark with anger. 7. The bustling banquet hall fell into an awkward silence. The surrounding crowd gazed at me with indescribably complicated expressions. Sangwon, who had been sitting back enjoying the drama, rose to her feet. She positioned herself beside Lin Yujo, smiling at me with eyes full of provocation and mockery, yet her words came out softly spoken, laced with a melodious hint of reproach. Wen, well, no one said anything about your past. Must you flaunt it so publicly, especially now as Yujo's wife? How do you expect him to save face when you bring up such matters? Even if Yujo's feelings mean nothing to you, Xiaoza and Xiao still call you mother. How do you suppose they'll face their classmates after this? Following Sangwon's gaze, I looked toward Linza and Lin Xiao standing nearby. Linza clenched his fists, his eyes bloodshot with rage. Meanwhile, Lin Xiao's eyes brimmed with tears as she glared at me with pure loathing. Remembering how they'd stood at the graveside clutching Lin Yujo's will, demanding I sell the house immediately to give them half the proceeds, I let out a scornful snort. Their real mother's still alive. What right do I have to call myself their mom? We'll talk when their dear mother kicks the bucket. You, Sangwon choked on her words, her porcelain face flushing crimson as she turned teary eyes toward Lin Yujo in silent plea. A barely perceptible glint of ruthlessness flashed through Lin Yujo's eyes. His hand clamped around my arm again with bone-crushing force. He hissed through gritted teeth. Wen, that's enough. Don't embarrass everyone here. Save your tantrums for home. 8. I lifted my gaze to meet the man's eyes directly. Overwhelming hatred surging through my chest. Friends nearby, seeing how tense things had gotten between us, quickly stepped in to mediate. Professor Lin, come over here. We'd love your advice on parenting. My boy keeps failing his exams. How do you usually communicate with your children? Soon enough, the banquet hall buzzed with noise once more. I sank back into my chair, watching the scene unfold with icy detachment. My chest tightened painfully as I poured another glass of red wine and drained it in one gulp. I knew perfectly well that divorcing Lin Yujo and escaping this den of vipers was my best path to freedom, yet they deceived me my entire life. How could I possibly let go of this hatred? 9. The farewell banquet ended as the crowd dispersed. Only Lin Yujo's family of 4 and I remained in the banquet hall. Mother-in-law's raspy voice pierced my ears. Wen, you might have no shame left. But our family still does. Must you broadcast your sordid premarital affairs to the whole world? Do you think those were honorable deeds? With your tarnished reputation and infertility, I wouldn't have accepted you even as a first-time bride. How could a used-up slut like you ever deserve our Yujo? Mom, Lin Yujo cut her mother-in-law off sharply. Didn't I tell you to stop bringing up the past? Why are you mentioning it again? I looked at my robust mother-in-law who still had plenty of vigor. At this stage, she hadn't yet been diagnosed with chronic kidney failure, so naturally she didn't need to constantly butter me up or coax me into financing her weekly dialysis trips. In my previous life, after her chronic kidney failure diagnosis, I cared for her religiously for 7 or 8 years, taking her to dialysis every Saturday without fail. She needed specially prepared meals following a low-protein, low-sodium, low-phosphorus, and low-potassium diet. She passed away peacefully in the hospital 2 months before Lin Yuzhou's suicide. The fulfilled filial duty mentioned in Lin Yuzhou's suicide note was actually my doing, not his. I let out a cold laugh and said, "Do you really think I'd settle for Lin Yuzhou if I hadn't lost my uterus to that injury? Your son's no saint. That professorship of his, pure nepotism. Without my father wearing out his shoes pulling strings with peer reviewers, he'd still be grinding away as a lecturer. Don't you dare play the whore and then demand respect." The moment I finished speaking, the room went deathly still. My mother-in-law clearly didn't expect me to confront her so bluntly. She turned livid with rage, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. 10. Lin Yuzhou, standing nearby, had a sore spot jabbed by my words. He roared, "What's gotten into you today? Just because he yuan you and criticized you a bit, was it necessary to lose your damn mind?" Lin Qiao also shrieked at the top of her lungs, "This is mine and brother's college celebration. Why'd you have to bring up your disgusting assault story? How am I supposed to face my classmates now? Why do you always ruin everything?" I took a deep breath, suppressing the fury bubbling up inside me. Damn right I'm pissed. What are you gonna do about it? Then I turned to Lin Qiao. "Why should I care if you lose face in front of your classmates? I haven't even mentioned how your ugly mug, short stature, and upturned nostrils embarrass me at work." Lin Qiao's looks were, let's just say, unconventional. Though twins with Lin Zhe, he inherited their mother's beauty while she was the spitting image of their grandmother. Lin Qiao froze momentarily before completely breaking down. With a loud wail, she sprinted out of the banquet hall on her stubby legs, sobbing uncontrollably, having no patience left for arguments. I grabbed my bag and walked out. 11. Outside the hotel. Night had fallen completely. The summer night breeze carried slight coolness, yet left a clingy dampness on my skin, kicking pebbles as I walked. My mind swirled with tangled thoughts. Remembering what happened to me feels like drowning all over again. I was sexually assaulted. During my senior year internship, I was followed and dragged into a dark alley after night shift. Public safety was much worse back then. Most alleyways didn't even have surveillance cameras. The man clamped his hand over my mouth and nose. I fought back with everything I had, and in the struggle, I landed a vicious kick to his groin. That kick sent him into a rage. He slammed me to the ground hard, but after 2 failed attempts, he yanked up his pants cursing and stomped on my abdomen in fury. Then they tossed me aside like a dirty rag, leaving me by the trash bin. My parents searched for me all night. When the doctors explained that my uterus was severely ruptured and my bladder damaged, requiring an emergency hysterectomy to save my life, my mother fainted dead away. My father's hair turned nearly white overnight, though he was sentenced to 10 years. The scars he left on me will never fade. I wore a catheter for 3 months and underwent a full year of therapy before barely recovering from that ordeal. Since then, I've been consumed by self-doubt, hypersensitivity, and self-loathing, too afraid to love, convinced I'm unworthy of anyone, until Lin Yuzhou came into my life. He was like a ray of light piercing through my dull and dreary existence. I thought he was my salvation, the beacon guiding my life. That's why in this marriage, I was willing to give my all, even when my mother-in-law was harsh, even when my stepchildren, influenced by her and their biological mother, held grudges against me and constantly gave me trouble. Still, I cherished this marriage. Little did I know, he was Satan lurking behind the light, the other hand dragging me into the abyss of hell. He ruined me utterly, twisting our once beautiful memories into daggers aimed at my heart through his schemes. 12. It was nearly midnight when I finally reached home. The room was pitch black. They must have gone to bed already. A faint rustling came from the balcony, eerily distinct in the dead silence of midnight. I switched on the light and stepped out to investigate. There sat a narrow-mouthed bamboo basket wrapped in fine mesh netting. That's exactly where the sound came from. The vaguely familiar scene sent chills down my spine. The place was crawling with venomous snakes. In their past life, when Lin Zhe and Lin Qiao received their high school entrance exam results, their grandmother insisted it was Buddha answering her prayers. She somehow got her hands on a dozen venomous snakes and planned to release them in the mountains with her 2 kids. When I found out, I repeatedly tried to talk her out of it, suggesting she release some crucian carp instead if she insisted on freeing animals, but she told me animals released through this ritual can never be eaten afterward. She'd still eat crucian carp, but poisonous snakes, never. Realizing reasoning with her was futile, I seized the opportunity when she went for her morning park stroll to deliver the bamboo basket containing venomous snakes directly to the Wildlife Rescue Center. The staff there recoiled in horror upon untying the woven sack. To their shock, it was filled entirely with highly venomous banded krites. Since banded krites are Class II protected species in China, the staff immediately alerted the authorities. The police lectured me for a full hour, made me sign a pledge against illegal wildlife trade, and only then let me go. My mother-in-law threw a tantrum, insisting I'd ruined her spiritual cultivation. I turned and retreated to my room. In this lifetime, I've decided not to get involved. 13. Early the next morning, as soon as mother-in-law returned with breakfast, she barked orders at Lin Yuzhou. Go wake Xiaoza and Xiao Qiao for breakfast right now. I'm taking them up the mountain later to release captive animals. Rubbing his temples irritably, Lin retorted, Mom, stop filling the kids' heads with that superstitious nonsense. She shot him a glare and scolded, What do you know? If I hadn't prayed to Buddha back then, do you think you'd have gotten into college? And those stellar middle school exam results, all blessings from my prayers. Seeing no point in further discussion, Lin Yuzhou fell silent. Frowning, he turned and knocked on Lin Zai and Lin Qiao's doors. After the children washed up and sat at the table, their grandmother finally unpacked breakfast from bags and served them individually. Everyone got a portion except me. I couldn't care less. I stormed back to the room, grabbed the pre-prepared ID card, marriage certificate, and household register, then slammed the door behind me, hailed a cab straight to the Real Estate Administration Bureau. Just as expected, Lin Yuzhou already had a 230 square meter property registered under his name. The registration date was 3 years ago, coinciding with the year Sangwan returned to the country. The mortgage on the property was lifted just 2 months ago. Must have paid off all loans early. I had the clerk stamp the inquiry form. The whole ride from the housing bureau to the office, I couldn't stop thinking, how could someone as meticulous as Lin Yuzhou leave a property registered under his name? In my past life, all I ever saw was a photocopy of the property deed. He even listed only his own son and daughter as insurance beneficiaries. The house I paid for. He never stopped scheming. There's no way he'd willingly let me take half of this property worth 6 to 7 million. 14. Right after the routine meeting, my office landline started ringing. I hit the speakerphone button. Linza's panicked sobs came through the speaker. Mom, come quick. Grandma got bitten by a venomous snake during the animal release ritual. She passed out from the pain and I can't move her. We're halfway up the southern hillside. You know this spot, where we had that picnic last hike with the huge boulder. Dad's phone won't connect. Mom, I'm so scared. There are poisonous snakes everywhere. Please come save us. Ah. Stay away. Don't crawl any closer. Lindsay's terrified scream reached my ears. Mom, can you hear me? Please come quick. The desperate cry rang out again. My hand instinctively grabbed the phone, ready to dial 911. But just as I was about to make the call, my finger froze midair over the dial button. I quietly put down my phone. If Grandma's Buddha could bless her grandchildren into good high schools, surely it would keep them safe too. I replied to Linza, Xiaoza, Mom's out of town. You'd better contact your dad immediately or call 120 for an ambulance. There was a 3-second silence on the other end. Mom, I'm calling your office landline. What I meant was I'm about to leave town. The taxi's waiting downstairs. No time to talk now. I'll call you later. With that, I hung up immediately. Then she turned off her phone. 15. The elderly woman got bitten multiple times by a banded krite, and Lindsay suffered 2 bites on his left calf. Lin Qiao happened to have menstrual cramps that day and stayed behind, narrowly avoiding disaster. The accident occurred halfway up the mountain in dense wilderness. The highly venomous krite bite left the elderly woman unconscious, while Linza experienced blurred vision and slurred speech. By the time rescuers located them, over 3 hours had passed since their distress call. Emergency treatment succeeded in saving both lives, however. The grandmother's condition remained critical with multiple deep bite wounds. She was convulsing violently, foaming at the mouth, with the snakebite site showing signs of blackened and festering skin. The doctor said this was just the beginning. The muscles around the bite would eventually undergo complete necrosis. It's unlikely Grandma will ever walk again. As for Lindsay, his bitten leg developed numbness and muscle weakness. That wasn't even the worst part. The doctor explained that the krite venom attacks the nervous system, causing memory loss, difficulty concentrating, and sleep disorders. What's more, it causes irreversible damage to multiple organs throughout the body. For a student about to enter high school, these effects could be devastating. I didn't show up at the hospital until 3 days after the incident, having lied about being away on business. I had to see the charade through. Lin Yuzhou practically roared when he saw me. Where the hell have you been these days? Why weren't you answering any of my calls? When Xiaoza got bitten by a snake and called you, why didn't you rush to help them? If you'd brought medical help sooner and they'd gotten anti-venom immediately, their condition wouldn't have gotten this bad. I glanced at the 2 figures lying in hospital beds. One was barely conscious. His vacant eyes stared blankly at the hospital ceiling. I protested tearfully. The company sent me on an emergency trip. And my phone got stolen right after I arrived. How was I supposed to know something happened at home? Then I turned the tables on him. Wait, I told Xiaoza to contact you immediately, didn't you go? What kind of father are you? Lin Yuzhou froze, his earlier bravado evaporating. I continued angrily, my voice dripping with disappointment. One is your own mother, the other your flesh and blood. How could you be so heartless? And now you dare shift the blame onto me. Tell me then. What were you doing at that moment? What could possibly be more important than saving your own mother and child? A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes as his tone involuntarily softened. I'm not blaming you. It's just, you vanished for 3 days without a word. I was worried sick. Enough. What's done is done. You stay here and look after Mom and Xiaoza. I'll go home to change. I flat out refused. No way. I've got piles of work waiting at the office. Need to head back right after this. Let's just hire a professional caregiver for the hospital stay. Lin Yuzhou's teeth ground together audibly, yet in the end, he gave a stiff nod. 16. Lin Zhe was discharged before his grandmother. He seemed to be suffering from PTSD. Frequently jolted awake by nightmares and utterly terrified to pass through areas with dense foliage. Even the rustling of leaves in the wind could make him cover his ears and scream in terror. Watching Linza like this left me with a tumult of emotions. There was a time when I genuinely cherished those siblings as my own children. As for his current condition, if anyone's to blame, it's his damn Buddha for not watching over him. In mid-July, the new high school freshman began registration. But Lin Zhe's current state clearly wasn't fit for school, so I went to handle his leave of absence paperwork. Given his outstanding high school entrance exam results, the school administration approved his request without hesitation. When I handed Lin Zhe the leave of absence receipt, he buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Perhaps he'd already realized this temporary leave was just delaying the inevitable. That high school would forever remain beyond his reach. I sighed inwardly. This would be the last thing I could do for him. 17. I listed our old house with a real estate agency. Though dated, the house sits in a good school district and should easily fetch 500,000 to 600,000, but I've already lined up a buyer. We'll close at 300,000. The day before my mother-in-law was discharged, I checked into the same hospital. When I asked Lin Yuzhou for money to pay the hospitalization deposit, he was stunned. Do you really have to be hospitalized right now? Who's going to take care of my mom after her discharge? I looked at the red-faced, furious man, pulled out the doctor's admission slip, and explained that they'd found a nodule in my lung requiring immediate surgery. The nodule isn't large, but it's pressing against my windpipe and causing persistent coughing. The doctor recommended removing it sooner rather than later. In my previous life, I waited 3 months for this procedure. This time, I'm deliberately moving it up. Lin Yuzhou clenched the hospital admission form tightly, taking several deep breaths. Several times it seemed he was about to explode with anger. In the end, he maintained his good husband act by pulling out his bank card from his pocket and handing it to me. I called my college-aged cousin who was on summer break to come stay with me at the hospital for a few days. On the second day after my surgery, while my cousin went downstairs for lunch, Lin Yuzhou suddenly produced some documents for me to sign. At that time I was still on postoperative fasting and feeling quite weak, but he kept pushing urgently. He told me his unemployed friend had become an insurance agent, and asked my spouse and me to take out some short-term policies to help boost his sales numbers. They'd need copies of my ID documents. They're affordable, just 100 to 200 yuan per annual policy. Consider it doing him a favor. Just sign at the bottom, he'll handle the rest. He handed me the pen while pulling out his phone to record. Right then, my cousin returned to grab her phone. Seeing Lin Yuzhou pressuring me to sign, she frowned. Brother-in-law, what's so urgent that my sister has to sign now? Look how pale and dizzy she is. Can she even read this? Let me check it for her first. As she spoke, She reached out to grab the documents. Lin Yuzhou swiftly gathered all the papers into his bag, forcing an awkward smile. How thoughtless of me. I completely forgot your sister just had surgery, got too caught up helping a friend meet their insurance quota. We can have her sign these when she's recovered. The cousin eyed him suspiciously before remarking, brother-in-law, you're not sneaking in some loan paperwork to trick my sister into signing, are you? Though meant as teasing. The comment made Lin Yuzhou visibly pale, shedding his usual gentle demeanor. He snapped at his cousin. What nonsense are you spouting? And you call yourself a college student, such vulgar language. With that, he hastily stormed out of the hospital room. His cousin wore a wounded expression. I picked up her phone from the nightstand and handed it to her, apologizing while urging her to go eat downstairs and not stoop to Lin Yuzhou's level. She stormed downstairs in a huff. The next day during rounds, the doctor suggested I try moving around a bit to help restore my digestive functions. 18. My cousin borrowed a wheelchair and took me for a stroll in the garden downstairs, saying the morning air was refreshing. She supported me as we walked slowly for about 10 minutes until I grew tired. Then we rested with my cousin on a bench behind the rockery. A familiar voice reached my ears. Didn't I tell you I'd come tonight? What are you doing at the hospital this early? I turned around, following the sound. Lin Yuzhou held a thermal lunchbox in one hand while wrapping his other arm around Sangwon's waist, his expression a mix of exasperation and tenderness. I pressed my index finger to my lips with a shush, signaling my cousin to stay quiet as I edged further behind the rockery. The woman pouted. It bothers me knowing you spent 2 hours making chicken soup for her. She doesn't deserve your kindness. Lin Yuzhou chuckled with a sigh. You're 40 years old. Yet still acting like a jealous teenager. Whenever I visit you, don't I always cook and make soup? She's just sick. I'm only bringing her meals twice. You wouldn't want her bedridden, leaving my mother uncared for, chores undone, and our child neglected, would you? Or we could remarry. I'll kick her out immediately. Sangwon let out a mocking laugh. Do I look that stupid to you? Being hands-off suits me just fine. I dumped both kids on her. She foots the bills, does the heavy lifting, handles their upbringing and education. Even if I hired nannies and tutors, they wouldn't be half as diligent. Free labor. Now that's living. And your mother, that temper of hers is unbearable. Now that she's bedridden, half paralyzed, how's someone as clumsy as me supposed to play nurse? I much prefer our current arrangement. No strings attached. Oh, about that property transfer agreement you mentioned yesterday. The one where we trick her into signing over the house to me. Did she fall for it? Lin Yuzhou's voice dropped lower. Not yet. That bratty cousin of hers ruined everything when we were so close. Honestly, her personal signature isn't absolutely necessary. But if she ever finds out and takes legal action, it could become a loophole. I'll just have to wait for another opportunity. Sangwon smiled nonchalantly. I trust Professor Lin's capabilities completely. I'll just wait patiently. With that, she snatched the thermal container from Lin Yuzhou's hands. Let me taste your cooking skills on her behalf first. Perfect timing. I haven't had breakfast yet. Lin Yuzhou hesitated briefly before helping her open the thermos lid. Sangwon giggled as she lifted the thermos, sniffed its contents first, then took a sip. Ugh. She spat the chicken soup back into the thermos, grimacing. It's so bland yet greasy. Absolutely disgusting. She took the thermos lid from Lin Yuzhou's hands and sealed it back on. This chicken soup isn't to my taste. Why don't you save it for your dear wife? Lin Yuzhou pulled out a tissue to wipe her mouth. Post-surgery patients need bland food, so I didn't add salt. This hen might have been a bit too fatty. I'll simmer you a fresh batch tonight. Wait downstairs for me. I'll deliver the soup first, then drive you home. The two walked arm in arm toward the hospital building. My cousin froze completely, turning to me with tear-streaked cheeks. Her grip on my wrist so tight it hurt. I grinned at her, only to make her tears fall harder. Her eyes bloodshot. She choked out, Sis, let me kill that wretched couple for you. I gently patted her hand, soothing her. Death would be too easy. I want them to live through the torment. After being discharged from the hospital, I found out Lin Yuzhou had temporarily placed his mother in a nursing home, just waiting until I recover. Then he'll bring his mother back for me to take care of again. 19. What a devoted son he fucking is. The realtor called me saying there's a buyer for the house. Humph. Lin Yuzhou turned pale with shock when he learned I wanted to sell the house. Have you lost your mind? Where would we live if we sold this place? I smiled faintly. I'm planning to upgrade to a bigger place. Our family's practically stacked like sardines here. His brows knitted tightly. Where would we get that kind of money? With Mom's health deteriorating and Xiaoza needing regular rehab sessions for his leg, every penny counts. Sure, This place is dated, but the location's perfect, we don't even need to drive to the hospital. I gave him a knowing look. I may be broke, but aren't you sitting on savings? You've been pulling in over 200K annually since becoming professor, while I've covered all household expenses. Don't tell me you're cash-strapped. Lin Yuzhou looked slightly uncomfortable. Well, yes, but all my liquid assets are tied up in funds and stocks right now. I can't access them on such short notice. Seeing him voluntarily bring up investments, I followed his lead. Since you claim all your money's invested, I'll need to review your portfolio. These assets fall under marital property. I should verify whether your investment amounts align with your declared income over the years. Naturally, he'd never agree to let me examine his investment accounts. After all, he'd sunk all his money into buying property. Even if he had investments, they were never meant to be shared with me. I summoned a lawyer with one phone call, insisting he rush over to notarize our agreement. I made Lin Yuzhou verify that all investments under his name remained marital property as of today. It doesn't matter, yet Lin Yuzhou hesitated, refusing to put pen to paper. His face darkened as he demanded, "Wen Yen, what's the meaning of this? You doubt me?" Shaking my head with a smile, I replied, "Since you made these investments using your salary, they should rightfully be considered marital assets. Today's notarization is just a formality, unless there's something fishy about these investments you're hiding from me." Of course not. If that's truly the case, then why hesitate to sign? Lin Yuzhou choked on his words. Seeing his continued refusal to sign, I turned to consult my lawyer. If my husband secretly transfers assets behind my back, how can I legally trace his fund movements? Lin Yuzhou shuddered, his pen clattering to the floor. The lawyer immediately understood. He replied earnestly, "You'll need to apply for a court-ordered investigation warrant. Once obtained, your attorney can help trace all bank accounts under his name, including financial assets like stocks, funds, and bonds. But this process is quite cumbersome and time-consuming, usually only pursued during divorce asset division proceedings." Before the lawyer could finish speaking, Lin Yuzhou had already handed me the agreement bearing his signature and thumbprint. With a faint smile, I accepted it and asked the lawyer to record a notarization video. Compared to the apartment and his monthly transfers to Sangwon, sacrificing 50% of his premarital investments was manageable. A month later, the property was finally sold. The deal closed at 300,000 yuan. The buyer was a friend I'd arranged beforehand. 20. Lin Yuzhou couldn't believe his ears and repeatedly verified the information with the agent. The agent patiently explained that while it was currently a school district property, new campuses for both elementary and middle schools were under construction. Within 3 years, all schools would relocate, leaving this area as just another urban village. Lin wasn't born yesterday. He told the agent to get lost and called off the sale. The agent produced the contract signed by both parties. "We have a binding agreement here. Unilateral breach requires 20% of the property value as compensation." I played peacemaker. "Come on, 300K is already decent. Aunt Zhang next door only got 380K for her 100+ square meter place. Once the school relocates in a couple years, we won't even find buyers. Dad's offering 500K toward our new place when he heard we're moving. Let's just sell now." Aunt Zhang's place did sell for just 380K. But that's because they upgraded. They sold the old place cheap to her sister-in-law. Lin Yuzhou fell silent when I mentioned Dad's housing fund. The moment the 300K housing payment hit my account, I dumped the entire sum into the stock market. I went long while my friend shorted. That money was doomed to evaporate under my watch. After selling the house, I hired movers to haul all my belongings to Sangwon's current penthouse. Linza trailed behind me with visible unease. 21. When he realized the moving address was his own mother's house, he was mortified enough to wish the ground would swallow him whole. I chuckled, "You must be quite familiar with this place. I suppose there's even a room here that belongs to you." His face flushed crimson as he kept wringing his hands nervously. I knocked on the door, but there was no response from inside. I called the police right in front of Lindsay, then summoned a locksmith. I informed the officers that my property had been illegally occupied. The trespasser not only took over my home but also changed the locks. I presented all necessary documents along with the notarized property records bearing the housing authority's official seal. With the locksmith's help, I managed to unlock the door smoothly. By the time Sangwon showed up loaded with shopping bags, the movers had already finished transporting everything. She flung the stuff in her hands at me. "Get the hell out. This apartment was bought for me by Yuzhou. What's it got to do with you?" I pulled out our marriage certificate again and waved it in front of her. This is marital property belonging to Lin Yuzhou and me. You're the one who needs to get out. The police explicitly informed Sang-won that since the property was under Lin Yuzhou's name, it constituted joint marital assets. She was required to vacate immediately, and could face financial compensation if I chose to press charges. Sang-won stood frozen in place, weeping. She pulled out her phone to call Lin Yuzhou, hoping he'd come help her sort this mess out. I watched her with a cold smirk. Lin Yuzhou's got his own problems to worry about now. Since when would he spare a thought for her troubles? 2 days ago, I mailed the infidelity evidence my PI gathered to both the disciplinary committee and education authorities at Lin's workplace. He's probably being questioned at school right now. Lin Yuzhou learned about this right after work, but instead of lashing out at me, he knelt down and kept apologizing. 22, he explained he'd only lent the place to Sang-won temporarily, and kept it secret fearing I'd misunderstand. After rambling on pointlessly, he begged me to go home and ask my father if connections could help smooth things over and cover up his misconduct, otherwise his career would be ruined. He swore he'd cut all ties with Sang-won completely and devote himself solely to our life together. I stared down at him the entire time without uttering a word. What's misconduct compared to anything else? There's an even bigger storm coming his way. Using the excuse of helping him persuade my dad, I moved back in with my parents, mostly worried he might snap from the coming blows and hurt me in anger. A while back, I stumbled upon Lin Yuzhou's old computer that he'd replaced years ago. Thinking I might find something useful, spent over $200 to get the computer fixed. Turned out they found evidence of his plagiarized thesis on that very machine. His published doctoral dissertation contained nearly 30% translated plagiarism, with identical arguments and strikingly similar reasoning processes. The foreign paper he referenced was still sitting in his old computer. I submitted evidence to the journal, reporting Lin Yuzhou's plagiarism in his paper. Shortly after, the journal promptly issued an official retraction notice for Lin Yuzhou's paper and removed it from their database. They permanently blacklisted him and banned all future submissions from him. Concurrently, the journal forwarded evidence of Lin Yuzhou's academic misconduct back to his university. The university immediately formed an investigation team and launched a series of inquiries. What shocked me most at this point was He Yuanyuan's public accusation against Lin Yuzhou. She exposed his plagiarism of her research findings, his brazen sale of co-authorship rights, and his inflation of research budgets to embezzle excess funds during grant applications. Only later did I understand why she took such drastic measures. After that farewell banquet, He Yuanyuan's husband filed for divorce. The man hadn't been entirely deaf to the circulating rumors. No matter how desperately He Yuan pleaded, his heart remained unmoved. Heartbroken and drowning her sorrows, He Yuan accidentally witnessed Lin Yuzhou and Sang-won sharing an intimate kiss at the bar. She lunged at Sang-won in fury, only to be publicly slapped across the face by Lin Yuzhou. The realization finally struck He Yuan. All these years she'd been nothing but Lin Yuzhou's foolish plaything, willingly handing over her research achievements to him. So she blew the whistle publicly in a fit of rage. Seeing everyone pitching in, I seized the moment to sue Lin Yuzhou, charging him with bigamy and concealment transfer of marital assets, but he dodged both court hearings with fabricated emergencies. The lawsuit has been temporarily adjourned. Lin Qiao probably still doesn't know what happened at home, calling angrily to demand living expenses. How many messages have I sent asking for money? Are you deliberately ignoring me? 23. I couldn't be bothered listening to her nagging. After hanging up, I swiftly blocked all her contact information without hesitation. Following a 2-month investigation, Professor Lin Yuzhou's title was revoked, and due to his misconduct and academic fraud, the university stripped him of all positions and terminated his employment contract. He must return all embezzled funds and allowances in full. The day after Lin Yuzhou was dismissed, I got a call from the nursing home. They said my mother-in-law had sudden respiratory failure and passed away before emergency services could arrive. I broke the news of her passing to Lin Yuzhou. A long silence hung on the other end of the line. I skipped mother-in-law's funeral, citing health issues. Everything about their family is none of my business anymore. That evening while working overtime at the office, I received another call from the police. The officer informed me that Lin Yuzhou had fallen into Shishan Reservoir, but fortunately was spotted by night fishermen who rescued him and called an ambulance to send him to City People's Hospital. I rushed to the hospital. Lin Yuzhou is out of immediate danger, but his thigh was lacerated by sharp underwater debris. Prolonged exposure has caused severe infection in the leg. The doctor presented me with 3 treatment options and was about to explain each one. I asked, "Just tell me which treatment option is the most cost-effective." The doctor hesitated before replying. The most economical solution would be amputation. But, amputate it then, I said without hesitation. The doctor paused briefly. Actually, we could consider vascular anastomosis or transplantation procedures. Amputation isn't necessarily the only option. The patient isn't even 40 yet, still so young. I insisted firmly. Just amputate. I can't afford those fancy transplant procedures. Where's the surgical consent form? I'll sign it. The doctor handed me the consent form with a complicated expression. I scribbled my signature in haste. Joke's on me, we're still legally married, so I'm footing half his medical bills. You bet I'll go for the most cost-effective treatment plan. Since waking from surgery, Lin Yuzhou has been drifting in a daze, unable to distinguish past from present. I picked up his phone and dialed Sangwon's number, 24. He looked at me like I was an idiot. Then Sangwon's tearful voice came through the receiver. Yuzhou, where have you been these days? I couldn't reach you at all. Xiao's homeroom teacher says she's puppy love and not focusing on her studies. Xiaoza isn't doing well mentally either. What am I supposed to do? Lin Yuzhou trembled violently upon hearing Sangwon's voice. Disbelieving, he asked, Wan, you're alive, didn't you pass away from pancreatic cancer 2 years ago? He lifted his tear-filled eyes to me, as if awaiting my confirmation. Are you losing it too? I'm perfectly fine. Since when did I have pancreatic cancer? Lin Yuzhou, what happened to Xiaoza? Were they bullied overseas? Sangwon sighed in exasperation. Are you out of your mind? Your mother took him up the mountain for that animal release ritual, and he got bitten by a snake. Lin Yuzhou's body trembled, his pupils contracting violently as he abruptly sat up and threw off the blankets to get out of bed. The moment he saw he had only one leg, he froze completely. How to describe his expression at that moment? In 4 words, utterly bewildering spectacle. He stared at the severed leg for what felt like an eternity, his body going limp as he collapsed heavily back onto the bed. Minutes later, Lin Yuzhou's heart-wrenching screams echoed through the hospital ward. Lin Yuzhou still refused to appear in court for my divorce proceedings. Fortunately, the judge proceeded with an ex parte hearing since I'd provided sufficient evidence. 25. As the at-fault party in the asset division, he received 40% of the marital property, while Lin Yuzhou was granted full custody of their 2 children. Additionally, Sangwon is required to return all assets that Lin Yuzhou had privately transferred to her. According to the lawyer's asset assessment, I retain ownership of the house, while he keeps the vehicles, investments under his name, and all funds previously spent on Sangwon. Fortunately, the current market price for this property is quite affordable, only about 6,000 to 7,000 per square meter. If prices hit over 30k per square meter a decade later, I'd be bleeding money for sure. Cutting ties with that toxic family was liberating. My life's been peaceful and enjoyable ever since. I quit my job, bought an RV to travel while I'm still young, documenting my adventures through videos. To my surprise, uploading them online unexpectedly gained me followers and even monetization opportunities. I ended up becoming a travel blogger. It wasn't until 2 years later that I heard news about Lin Yuzhou again. Someone brought him up during dinner with friends. They said he caused absolute chaos at Sangwon's engagement party, smashing numerous hotel and wedding company facilities. Sangwon later called the police, resulting in him paying compensation and serving a 15-day administrative detention. After his release, he drowned himself in alcohol daily, letting his life spiral into ruin. Lin Xiao dropped out of high school before graduating. Since Lin Yuzhou and Sangwon frequently forgot to send her living expenses, she eventually moved in with a wealthy classmate. She just wanted a sugar daddy, but ended up pregnant instead. Lin Xiao got expelled from school. Lin Yuzhou dragged his broken body to the rich kid's house to make a scene, only to get slandered. They claimed Lin Xiao was selling herself willingly. In the end, the rich family paid 60,000 yuan to hush it up. The rich kid walked away unscathed and went back to school. Those 60,000 yuan sealed Lin Xiao's bright future. Hearing this, my heart grew heavy with sorrow as memories of my own past surfaced, and I let out a quiet sigh. A girl's path is always harder to tread. Later, Sangwon was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer again, and her fiancé immediately broke up with her upon hearing the news. She turned to Lin Yuzhou for help, only to discover the man had vanished without a trace. No one knew his whereabouts. Time flew by, and 2 more years passed. I've lost my passion for traveling and instead seized the opportunity to buy a villa courtyard before prices skyrocketed. 26. Now I've got a cat and a dog, with the whole yard blooming with flowers and plants. One evening after dinner, I took my dog for a walk in the neighborhood park. Suddenly a trembling voice called from behind me, "Mom." I turned my head and saw Linza. He walked with a slight limp in his left leg, dressed in blue-gray work overalls bearing weighting machinery embroidered on the chest pocket. His eyes were bloodshot, his expression agitated. I paused momentarily before correcting him with a gentle smile. "I'm not your mother anymore. You can call me Auntie." His body trembled slightly as tears streamed down his face. The little dog I was holding strained desperately forward on its leash. I gave Linza a helpless smile, Snowball's being too mischievous. "He probably wants to play up ahead. I'll take him there first. Drop by our place sometime." I turned and kept walking, but my vision gradually blurred. In a daze, I seemed to see the timid little girl and wide-eyed boy from over a decade ago. So small they were. Gazing at me with nothing but curiosity in their eyes, the boy asked, "Who are you? Why did you come to our house?" "I'm your mother." Their little eyes sparkled with excitement as they rushed toward me, hugging me tightly and cheering. "We have a mom now. I'm gonna tell all my kindergarten friends I've got the prettiest mom." But how did we end up like this? Story 2. In a previous life, on the day I fell from a building and lost my sight, my fiancé was on the hospital rooftop kissing his first love. When he saw my mangled body, he had a sudden change of heart, lamenting his belated realization. "It was you who started from scratch with me, who stood by me through thick and thin. How could I have been so blinded by her?" I looked at the anguished man with disdain, a tear of self-mockery rolling down my cheek. After being reborn, his first love kissed him passionately, cruelly mocking me for my foolish hopes. Confident that the now impoverished man would one day achieve great success and wealth, she was wrong. Without my help, her man would remain nothing but a reckless fool with lofty ambitions but no substance. 7 days after losing my sight in a car accident, lying in the hospital bed, I seemed to have grown accustomed to the darkness that greeted my open eyes. Perhaps because I woke up early from my nap today, Rania wasn't in the room. In the hallway, the 2 nurses taking care of me were gossiping. "Mr. Ran and Miss Meng are truly a match made in heaven." The proposal ceremony was the talk of the town. Mr. Ran's kneeling was like a scene out of a romantic schoolyard confession from back in the day. "Weren't you and Mr. Ran from the same school? How come I heard that the one who's blind and lying in the hospital bed is actually Mr. Rant's fiancé, her? She's at best a persistent suitor of Mr. Rant's, and quite shameless at that. She rode the coattails of the IT elite for years, even disowning her own parents. People like her deserve to end up disabled." Mr. Ran meets Miss Meng on the rooftop every day at this time. They're really sweet together. I bit my lip hard, feeling a suffocating ache in my chest, as if a sharp knife was slicing through my organs. I stifled my sobs. The man who whispered in my ear before nap time, promising to celebrate my birthday with me upon waking, was already entangled with his first love. Memories flooded back, piercing my mind like shards of glass, shattering my last defenses. A grand proposal, a perfect match. They were indeed well suited for each other. What was I then, a joke? I fumbled out of bed, and not 2 steps later, I tripped over a chair, pain shooting through my knee. The nurses at the door, upon hearing the noise, laughed and pretended not to see my plight. Leaving together, I had grown used to this. My body bore many bruises from bumps and scrapes, unnoticed by the nurses, and so far undiscovered by Ranyao. He was always busy, glancing at me briefly before being whisked away by trivial company matters. Now I understood. He was just fitting me in during a break from his dates with Meng Wanqiu, not wanting anyone to see my disheveled state. I groped along the wall to the stairwell. The hospital stairs were long, and the pain of a broken rib in my chest sounded an alarm through my body. I clenched my lips, suppressing the taste of blood in my throat, driven to confront him for an answer. Perhaps because the cleaning staff had just mopped, I slipped unexpectedly, a slight sound coming from my ankle as I fell to the ground. In that instant, memory surged. During a physical test years ago, I sprained my ankle and fell on the track field. Ranya rushed through the crowd to me, his lips pursed with worry, carrying me to the infirmary. Afraid I was in pain, he gently massaged my ankle along the way. The doctor advised me to walk less, so he took it upon himself to carry me to and from school. At the age of 16 or 17, he carried me up and down the 6 flights of stairs of the old-style residential building. The boy in my memories shone like a brilliant meteor streaking across the night sky, once illuminating my youth but now as unfamiliar as a stranger. I leaned against the wall to support myself, the pain in my ankle intensifying with each step, until I reached the rooftop and touched the iron door. The car accident was truly an accident. It's all my fault. I noticed there was a problem with the brakes that day, but I got distracted and forgot to tell you. The low male voice gently comforted the sobbing woman, his tone full of pity. I could almost see the pain in his eyes. Forget it, what's done is done. If anyone is to blame, it's just Lu Mu's bad luck, the young man and woman whispered softly, their voices tender and affectionate, quickly turning into sounds of suppressed passion. The fear of near death from the accident still lingered in my body, causing me to tremble all over, each breath cutting through my chest like a knife. I had lost my sight, broken 3 ribs, yet all I got in return was his remark about my bad luck. The betrayal of a lover was more terrifying than darkness. As I opened the iron door and stepped out, I despairingly realized that I couldn't discern their location. I wanted to curse, to vent, to denounce Io's betrayal. But when the words reached my lips, all that came out was a choke. In my panic, I felt a harsh push from behind. The pain in my ankle worsened. I stumbled forward, then suddenly felt myself hanging in the air, plummeting straight down. As my soul separated from my shattered limbs, I saw Io rushing over clumsily. People surrounded my body. He forcefully made his way through the crowd, pausing in shock when he saw my twisted corpse, then abruptly stepped back. Watching his expression turn from blank to stiff, his cheeks twitching as if in agony, he rushed forward and slowly knelt by my feet. My blood, still warm, soaked his neat suit pants. It seemed to scald him, his body trembling violently. Seeing his expression darken with sorrow, I felt, for a moment, that Io might have truly cared for me. Io, the dead cannot be brought back, mourn and move on. Meng Wanqiu stepped forward to pull Io away, but he shook off her hand as if electrocuted. Stumbling backwards, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the ground, his eyes filled with resentment towards her. Some advised him to mourn and move on, others noted his deep feelings, yet Io seemed deaf to the world, his back bent severely, his shoulders shaking. He frantically tried to realign my dislocated bones, to wipe the blood from my face, but it just wouldn't come off. He closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by sorrow. Unable to face my lifeless gaze, helplessly, he withdrew his hands. His face deathly pale, his voice hoarse and broken. Xiao Mu, I'm sorry, it should have been me who died, why wasn't it me? This belated affection seemed to me now cheaper than dirt. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the college basketball court. The tall figure in front of me, back slightly bent, had been kneeling under the scorching sun for half an hour. It was my lover from a past life, Io. He had just been rejected by the girl he adored under the moonlight. Surrounded by a crowd of onlooking students, some mocked him as a poor boy aiming too high, others pitied him for not exploring more options. Just then, a malicious voice emerged from the crowd. Lu Mu, don't you like Io? Take this chance while he's heartbroken, maybe it'll give you a chance to strike when the iron is hot. Laughter erupted around us, and the young man's gaze slowly shifted towards me, his dark eyes sparkling. At this moment, he lacked the composure and the slackness brought on by wealth of his later years. His expression was aloof and rebellious, and there was a hint of barely noticeable ambition. I used to be captivated by the pride in his gaze, always feeling that he had an unreachable sense of aloofness. Looking back now, it's absurd. He was just an ordinary person. It was my affection that cast him in a different light. In my past life, I pitied him when he was mocked by everyone. Holding a special affection for him deep in my heart, I openly declared my feelings, picking up his trampled sincerity from the mud where Meng Wanqiu had left it, presenting it to him along with my own heart, giving him the dignity and vanity a man deserves. If I could do it all over again, I'd rather see him kneel and perish on the field. Just as Ran Yao was confident I'd come to his rescue, the crowd suddenly parted. A figure returned. It was Meng Wanqiu. She was drenched in sweat, gasping for air as she clutched her chest, and with a long arm, she shielded Ran Yao behind her. Glaring at me viciously, Ran Yao is mine, give up on him, she hissed. I slowly curled my lips into a smile. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who was reborn. In my previous life, Meng Wanqiu never ended up with Ran Yao. She had planned to use Ran Yao's fame and fortune to help her bankrupt father make a comeback, but after my death, Ran Yao inexplicably sold off our company, valued at billions, and donated all the money to charity, keeping none for himself. Meng Wanqiu desperately ran to the apartment Ran Yao and I once shared, skillfully entering the password to let herself in. Under the dim light, a disheveled man surrounded by bottles and cigarette ashes held my photo. Drunk and unconscious, Meng Wanqiu cried incessantly, hoping her tender words would win back the man's affection. Ran Yao, look at me, I'm the one alive and by your side, forget her. Please, originally, you liked me, she pleaded. She tried everything, even stripping naked, only to receive a self-mocking glance from him. Originally, it was she who started from scratch with me, who faced difficulties with me. How could I be fooled by someone like you, who only loves vanity? Meng Wanqiu cried even harder, shaking her head repeatedly. No. I had a reason for rejecting you initially. My father forced me to go abroad, Ran Yao. I've always liked you, whether you were a poor boy or a rich man. My feelings for you will never change. Let's pull ourselves together. We can start another company. You are talented and gifted. You can certainly make it great again. Ran Yao pushed her away, letting the broken glass cut into her skin without a second glance. Furious, Meng Wanqiu cursed at my grave day after day, saying I wouldn't let her have peace even in death. That I still monopolized Ran Yao's heart from below the ground. The luxury I enjoyed while alive should have been hers. If only she hadn't rejected Ran Yao back then, there would have been no place for me. I sat on my grave, watching her with amusement. The once scorned poor boy, now a successful IT mogul after a few years, the once proud and untroubled rich girl, now fallen from grace, realized that her former suitors had made their fortune. He longed to return to the past. A decision akin to the folly of craving the grass behind him. How could one expect to achieve anything substantial without putting in the effort? Ran Yao's current success was not handed to him on a silver platter. I was the one who entertained investors and drank until my stomach bled. I worked tirelessly through nights, revising project proposals. It was I who helped Ran Yao ascend to his current esteemed position, earning him widespread adoration and applause. Otherwise, with his proud and impulsive nature, he would have been devoured in the ruthless business world, leaving nothing behind. Not even bones. Meng Wanqiu obviously couldn't hear the pleas of my heart. Her venomous gaze fell upon my photograph, her face twisting grotesquely. If I were given another chance, I would never let go of Ran Yao. And in another life, she did just that. Meng Wanqiu grabbed Ran Yao by the hand, pulling him up from the plastic track, and picked up a dust-covered rose from the ground. She carefully dusted it off, her arrogance mixed with a smug confidence. Ah Yao, from today onwards, you are mine. The scene before everyone was shocking. Just moments before, the school beauty had been angrily mocking her impoverished suitor. The next second, she was on her tiptoes, planting a kiss on him, claiming her ownership publicly. Ran Yao was clearly stunned, confusion overshadowing his joy as his eyes frantically searched the surroundings, finally resting on me. That look was all too familiar. Whenever he faced a problem or felt uncertain, he would seek my help with that same expression. Lu Mu, President Song of Qianhua has a gathering tonight. Will you accompany me? You know the project details better than I do. The company still needs 10 million for the first round of financing. Lu Mu, give it another try. The vice president of Yuanguan Group was quite impressed with you last time. Even now, I remained his childhood friend, having stood by his side for many years. The affection from our childhood, the support we provided each other as adults, the countless nights we spent together. Yet Ran Yao allowed me to become blind in a car accident without holding Meng Wanqiu even slightly accountable. A chilling coldness crept up my spine. Could their involvement have also pushed me off that building? Ran Yao's gaze lingered on me a bit too long, causing Meng Wanqiu's brow to furrow in anger. She stubbornly tiptoed and hooked her arms around his neck, delivering a kiss that was both intense and passionate. The sensational applause and cheers erupted around us. I pursed my lips, slightly raising my eyebrows, and joined the crowd in applauding, as Meng Wanqiu wished. It didn't take long for almost everyone on campus to know that the school beauty had madly fallen for a poor boy. She shadowed Ran Yao every day, whether it was in the professional classrooms or the student cafeteria. Their intimate and affectionate demeanor was evident to all. Meng Wanqiu's parents, however, were displeased and confronted the couple at the school gate. Wan, come home with us. We've arranged for you to study abroad. If you want to date, your father knows many well-educated boys from distinguished families. This poor boy, reeking of poverty, is not worthy of you. Meng Wanqiu sensed the man beside her growing tense, his expression suddenly darkening. Dad, what are you talking about? Ah Yao wins scholarships every year. He's outstanding. Her father scoffed. Those scholarships, are they enough for a trip to a Michelin-starred restaurant, or enough to buy a new designer bag? Don't lose your sense over a man. Our family provides you with a comfortable life. You should broaden your horizons and aim higher. Not. Ran Yao, expressionless, cut him off. Uncle Wan is not a tool for your ambitions. Our relationship is our own business, and it doesn't require your concern. With that, he left. He grabbed Meng Wanqiu and left. I stepped out from under the shade of the trees, watching Meng's father so angry that his body spasmed. I approached politely and asked how he was. When he heard that I was Ran Yao's classmate and childhood friend, his gaze swept over me with a hint of dissatisfaction. I pretended not to notice and tried to act like a lovelorn admirer, who, despite being dejected, defended the boy she liked with feigned composure. Ran Yao is really pitiful. His father gambles and drinks heavily, his mother couldn't stand the long-term domestic abuse and ran away with someone else when he was very young. Ran Yao even earned his tuition fees by fighting in illegal boxing matches. Uncle, please let them be. He is truly a good boy. Meng's father's gaze was sharp as a knife, and his expression changed repeatedly. His family has a history of violence too. Hearing this, I quickly shook my head, my eyes panicked as if trying to hide something, and then my eyes reddened, tears hanging on the brink of falling. No, his involvement in a fight and getting detained in high school was just because he was too impulsive when he was younger. By the end, my voice was choked and unclear. I wanted to continue my act, but Meng's father didn't give me the chance. He dialed a number and started yelling into the phone, "You choose to degrade yourself by being with such scum. Don't consider me your father from today onwards. All your credit cards are cancelled, and you're not allowed to stay in the apartment in the suburbs of Beijing. Let's see how long you can last." Meng Wanqiu cried out over the phone, "Dad, why won't you believe me? Ran Yao will be successful one day, and our family will have to beg for his help." Meng's father didn't believe her at all. Soon, Meng Wanqiu received a text message about her credit card being deactivated, her throat burning with anger. "No wonder our family will go bankrupt in the future. With your arbitrary nature, even a fortune would be squandered away by you." That single mention of bankruptcy infuriated Meng's father to the point where he almost had a heart attack. He felt like Meng Wanqiu had been blinded by stupidity, and he scolded her along with her mother, who usually doted on her daughter. "If I find out you're secretly giving her money, both of you can get out of this house." Meng's mother tried to calm her husband cautiously, not daring to utter a word of dissent. 5. That evening, Meng Wanqiu kicked open my dorm room door, her eyes venomous as if poisoned. "It was you who badmouthed me in front of my parents, wasn't it, Lu Mu? You're even more shameless than I thought. Don't think I'll leave Ran Yao. He will only ever belong to me. And you're just a cheap woman no one wants even if you throw yourself at them." I closed the book in my hands, calmly meeting the gaze of the furious woman in front of me, who still only saw relationships as a means to an end. Perhaps my calmness irritated her, or perhaps she didn't see the jealousy and rage she expected. Meng Wanqiu smoothed her hair at her neck, revealing a triumphant red smirk. "Last night, Ran Yao was wild. It hurt a bit. Young men are so impatient. Who would have thought what he will become in the future?" Meng Wanqiu paused, her lips curving, and her eyes more rampant than before, her breath hot on my cheek, her tone threatening. "Don't set your sights on him. What right do you have to compete with me, with your post-graduation salary of 3,000 to 4,000 a month, or by seducing your useless foster father?" A thunderclap exploded by my ear. As if in an instant my hearing was stripped away, leaving only a roaring noise that grew louder and louder. I had thought that Ran Yao would be reluctant to part with Meng Wanqiu, and I guessed that their relationship was already ambiguous, but I never imagined he would think of me this way. Seduction. The young man who had once rushed home in the rain, beat that beast until he was bloody, and protected me, telling me it wasn't my fault, comforting me gently. Was this really how he saw me? I clenched my pen so hard that the sharp tip pierced my skin without feeling. Under the light that spilled over my head, I met Meng Wanqiu's gaze, perhaps finally seeing the annoyance in my eyes. She seemed unusually excited. "Is it true?" At first, I didn't believe it, but, "Lu Mu, you're despicable." I abruptly stood up, pushed her down onto the desk, and aimed a sharp pen at her palm, stabbing down hard. The pen tip broke, and a hole was poked in Meng Wanqiu's hand, blood trickling out. The fresh blood against her porcelain skin was strikingly conspicuous. She covered her palm and cried out, "Lu Mu, you've gone mad." She grabbed the paper scissors from the desk and lunged at me. As I saw someone rushing in from outside, I paused for a moment, turned my head to one side, and the sharp edge of the scissors grazed my neck. Blood dripped down to my collarbone, soaking the collar of my white dress. I clenched my teeth in pain, not making a sound. A pair of slender hands covered the wound, and the man in front of me had a chill and his eyes reminiscent of a winter day, his gaze sharply sweeping over the assailant. "You better have a good explanation." Seeing the man defending me, Meng Wanqiu's expression froze. She wanted to accuse the other of starting the fight first, but her mind suddenly flashed back to a scene of the man's past indifference. "Ran Yao, you're protecting her. I'm your girlfriend." The skin under the palm on my neck shivered. I turned my face away, avoiding the man's touch. Ran Yao's eyebrows furrowed, his eyes fixed on me, his voice rough. "Are you all right?" I looked at him and coldly said, "Get out." Ran Yao looked stunned for a moment, his eyes filled with complex emotions, as if he couldn't accept that the girl who once only had eyes for him was now speaking to him with such indifference. I felt a chill. Ranyao, like most men, was no different when he was poor. All he thought about was how to make more money. After enjoying wealth, his thoughts turned to luxuries and desires, fine wine, women, and the thrill of regrets. These had become the new targets in his life. I never thought he cared much for Meng Wanqiu. It was just youthful pride and a man's desire at play, the unattainable moonlight and the mosquito blood already in hand. Men always think the best ones are those they haven't had yet. The wound on my neck looked worse than it was. It was actually not very deep, certainly lighter than the wound on Meng Wanqiu's hand. After a quick treatment, I sat back at my desk, the laptop screen in front of me filled with dense lines of code and formulas, a complete game script nearing its end. Suddenly, a notification popped up on my email. It was feedback from a technology company I had applied to a few days ago. Unsurprisingly, I had successfully obtained an interview with one of the top gaming companies in the country. I knew Ranyao had also applied to this company. In my past life, I had helped him significantly improve his initial game model, and during the interview presentation, he shone brightly, performing second only to me among more than 20 other candidates. This time, I was eager to see how far he could go without my help. My phone screen suddenly lit up, and almost instantly, I hung up. The caller was persistent, as if determined not to give up, and when blocked, they resorted to sending text messages from other numbers. Lu Mu, do you have no conscience? Mom is so ill, and you can't even help, but can't you at least come to see her? The message was from my so-called younger brother, who wasn't related by blood and never spoke politely. It seemed like he had never called me sister since I could remember, although I don't particularly care for it either. To me, that family hardly qualifies as one, if I must label it. It might as well be called a den of vampires, the root of all evil. In my previous life, my foster parents were healthy and lively, still hopping around even after I died, yet, Lu Xian claimed his mother was ill. It was obvious without thinking. Meng Wanqiu must have been upset about being outdone by me tonight and was stirring up trouble again. After all, my so-called brother was her fervent admirer, obsessively devoted to her as if drugged, groveling in the dust. The only strategy she and my brother, flattened by the iron of their circumstance, could think of was to exploit a woman's innocence for their own ends. I scoffed, my laughter loud enough to startle my roommate returning late. Upon hearing about Meng Wanqiu causing a scene in the dormitory, she was even more furious than I was. Did that little hussy come strutting around? I used to think she was so picky, looking down on her suitors through her nostrils. Turns out she's blind to have set her sights on Ranyao. Seeing that I didn't respond, she quickly covered her mouth, remembering that I used to be the blindest of all, and blind I was, blinded in a car accident in my past life, then falling from a high place, my brain splattered everywhere, my body too decayed to look at. All of this was thanks to that despicable man and woman. Since God has given me the chance to turn back time, how could I not make good use of it? How could I not live this life properly? Meng Wanqiu, you've done so much evil, you're bound to encounter ghosts. Karma is long overdue to fall upon you. On Friday morning, I made a trip to the tube houses near the university town. My foster parents doted on their son, fearing he wouldn't adjust well to living and eating at school, so they rented a house to stay close to him. Pushing open the rusty iron gate, I was greeted by a strong smell of tobacco and alcohol. The house was eerily quiet, except for the hurried footsteps coming from the bedroom. Lu Xian appeared before me, his yellow hair and his face a perfect blend of his father's sleaziness and his mother's harshness, with small, shifty eyes. At that moment, his pupils flashed with ill intent. The sun is harsh outside, you must be thirsty. Have a drink to cool down. He offered me a bottle of soda, already opened, with a lift of his eyebrows and a look of arrogant pride, as if being served by him was a great honor. I barely lifted my eyelids and took the bottle without drinking. Aren't you saying your mom is seriously ill? Where is she? Lu Xian's smile faded instantly. Lu Mu, what's this about your mom and my mom? Don't forget your roots. If it weren't for my family taking you in, you would have starved on the streets hundreds of times. I had heard this phrase so often growing up that it made my ears callous. They couldn't have children for many years, and upon hearing advice to adopt a girl compatible with their zodiac to bring luck for a son, they did just that. Sure enough, they had a boy the following year, and their looks of disdain towards me grew. If it weren't for their fear of damaging their moral integrity and losing the annual subsidy of 2,000 yuan from the government, they would have abandoned me long ago. From a young age, I knew I was unwelcome in the family, yet I still harbored hopes for familial affection. until that stormy night, the violent slap from my foster father, the cold gaze of my foster mother. If I hadn't stabbed the man and escaped, I would have lived in the shadow of this family forever. After that night, I never returned home, and they never gave me any living expenses. Years later, as Ranyao's and my company was doing well, that couple protested under our building, accusing me of being unfilial until I fell to my death. They never once visited my grave. He constantly complained to everyone he met that he had raised an ungrateful wretch, saying that such a person deserved a short and miserable life. Lucien, as the biological son of his adoptive parents, was equally greedy and shameless. He blamed my death on the negligence of the hospital staff and managed to get a substantial compensation. This so-called dutiful son took the money and spent it all to win over Meng Wanqiu's favor, without leaving a penny for his parents. Even now, recalling his heartless and ungrateful demeanor gives me chills. Lucien became anxious when he noticed that I kept refusing to drink the beverage, and his phone rang while he was urging me. He glanced at me in a fluster, hurried upstairs, and closed the door to take the call. I went over to the sink and poured the drink from the glass bottle into a ceramic bowl in the corner. When Lucien returned, he saw me lying unconscious on the sofa, clutching the empty bottle. He kicked my shoulder with the tip of his shoe and sneered, "You dare to hurt Wan, you lowlife unworthy of public appearance. Today, I'll strip your clothes and record a video for the whole school." As he turned to get a camera from the cabinet, he barely pulled open the drawer when his head was struck hard, causing him to spin around and fall unconscious to the ground. The glass bottle shattered on the floor, and his phone dropped as well. I picked up the phone, opened the chat history, and sent messages to Meng Wanqiu and my foster father. As expected, Meng Wanqiu was lurking nearby. Upon receiving the message, she rushed over immediately. She burst through the door, impatiently complaining, "Why did you take so long? Do you know how hot it is outside? I'm about to die from the heat." Before she could finish, her knees were struck hard with a stick, causing excruciating pain. She immediately fell to her knees, and then 2 loud slaps followed. Caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, Meng Wanqiu was stunned and couldn't even cry out before someone grabbed her mouth and forced an unknown liquid down her throat. As she lay coughing violently on the floor, her eyes and nose streaming with tears and mucus, she finally saw me standing in front of her. "What did you make me drink?" She stepped back, glancing at Lucien, who lay unconscious on the floor, her speech faltering with fear. I flipped the bowl upside down on the table and let out a cold laugh. "Of course, it's the kind gift you prepared for me." The dizziness in her head made Meng Wanqiu realize I was not joking. Her expression drastically changed, and she frantically started to gag herself. But she couldn't stop the blurring of her consciousness or the strange feeling rising in her abdomen. I moved the person into the bedroom, locking her hands and feet in handcuffs, something Lucien never imagined would be used on his beloved goddess. When I arrived at the technology company for an interview, the hallway was already filled with candidates. Unsurprisingly, I saw Ranyao among the crowd. He was nervously fidgeting with the corner of his suit jacket, a subconscious gesture when he was anxious. In our past life, we founded a company and secured our first investment from Guanming Group, which was the company we were interviewing with today. Back then, soon after resigning from Guanming, fueled by passion and a vision for the future, we pledged to establish the best gaming company in the country. He was in charge of product design, and I was responsible for market expansion. As we waited in the meeting room for the Guanming executive, he was as nervous as he was today. "AMU, if they don't like our design or agree with our vision, all our efforts this past year will be wasted." I leaned gently on his shoulder, intertwining my fingers with his anxious ones, my tone firm. "We will succeed. Don't forget, you promised to take me to see the northern lights in Iceland and to lie on the beaches of Barcelona in the sun." Whether it was my conviction that reassured him or the mention of Iceland that triggered a memory, Ranyao's gaze briefly faltered. At that time, I didn't notice. My heart was filled with the joy of imminent dreams achieved. 3 days ago, the head of Yuan Guan Group had already approached me. He highly recognized my capabilities and was willing to invest in our company. However, the precondition was that my position had to be higher than Ranyao's. I had to be the real decision maker in the company. I couldn't understand why an investor, typically focused only on returns, would want to interfere with team appointments. The leader responded straightforwardly, "Lu Mu, when you left the company, I truly regretted it. You are a rare genius, unlike Ranyao, who is at best a standout among the average, bound by limited capabilities and vision. His potential is capped. I know you two are lovers. You must have helped him a lot with the portfolio during the interview, right?" There's a barrier between ordinary people and geniuses. You can help him temporarily, but not for a lifetime. At the time, I didn't believe it and pushed Ran Yao up the ranks under pressure, keeping my meeting with the head of Yuan Guang a secret to protect his ego. Looking back, I was foolish. His betrayal and recklessness turned me into a joke in the eyes of others and shattered my faith in love. In the end, I was left standing in the rain, completely drenched. From a distance of 2 to 3 meters, Ran Yao took long strides towards me. His eyes were bright. When he noticed the wound on my neck, he seemed slightly uneasy. Does your wound still hurt? I ignored his concern and countered, what about Meng Wanqiu? Aren't you two inseparable? Why isn't she with you for such an important interview? Ran Yao seemed stunned for a moment before lowering his head slightly, his eyes and brows furrowing. She studies art. She doesn't understand these things. She couldn't help me like you used to. You always had a way of inspiring my designs. His words felt like a switch, and Ran Yao suddenly opened up, reminiscing about the past. I never knew he was such a talkative person, and I smirked self-deprecatingly. Lu Mu, are you listening? His voice was hoarse. I silently looked at him, and after a long pause, I calmly confirmed, Ran Yao, you told Meng Wanqiu about how I was almost raped by my foster father. He took a heavy breath before responding. She asked me about it on her own. I don't know how she found out. Where else could it have come from? Perhaps from them years later, casually mentioned while resting in bed after a lover's quarrel, or maybe Ran Yao treated it as a joke to tell her during her tantrums. Although I had guessed it, hearing it from his mouth still made my heart ache sharply, as if pierced by a blade, not because of him, but because of my pathetic, laughable decade of sacrifice. The interview was about to begin when Ran Yao suddenly received a phone call. His expression changed drastically, and he started to leave but stopped as the HR personnel called out his name. His steps halted, his expression torn. I smiled. Is it someone important? Yuan Guang recruits every year. There will be other opportunities. Don't live with regrets. The fire in Ran Yao's eyes suddenly flared. Indeed, how could an interview compare to Meng Wanqiu's safety? As long as Meng's parents accepted him, he wouldn't worry about opportunities to advance in the latter half of his life. Without any hesitation, he gave up the interview. I hurried back in the direction from which I had come. I picked up the documents and decisively headed to the conference room. There, I heard the deep and distant voice of the man sitting at the head of the table. Due to strategic adjustments within the company, this interview session will be Guangming Group's last external recruitment. Congratulations to all of you for catching the last train. When I returned to campus with a new company offer, rumors had already spread like a flood. Ran Yao had gotten into a fight over the school beauty, and by the time the police and ambulance arrived, the scene was impenetrably crowded. Everyone shared details as if they had seen it with their own eyes. I heard that when he was carried out, he had already passed out, covered in blood, with several teeth knocked out. The scene was a mess, with sheets and covers all over the place. Meng Wanqiu was crying and screaming that she had been assaulted, while the man claimed that it was Meng Wanqiu who had seduced him. The police took statements, and the accounts were inconsistent, making it difficult to determine whether Meng Wanqiu was willing or forced. But Ran Yao's assault is an indisputable fact, and it's uncertain if he will be expelled by the school. When I arrived at the hospital, my adoptive father had already awakened. His front teeth were shattered, his ribs broken, and his leg injured, lying on the bed no different from a dead fish. My adoptive mother was crying hysterically, cursing and demanding Ran Yao's life, while Lucien cowered in a corner, too terrified to make a sound. Seeing me enter the hospital room, Lucien rushed forward, grabbing my collar as if ready to strike. His teeth clenched in fury. Was it you? Did you do this? The commotion attracted the police nearby, who glanced over, forcing Lucien to let go of me. I straightened my crumpled collar and spoke in a low, mocking tone. If you think it was me, why don't you go tell the police? Tell them how you conspired with Meng Wanqiu to ruin me, where your aphrodisiac came from, and discuss how the man lying on that bed assaulted your beloved goddess. Lucien's eyes reddened, his fists clenched tightly, yet he dared not retort. Breathing heavily as if he wanted to devour me alive, I patted his shoulder regretfully, advising him in a sincere tone, my dear brother, we are family. It pains me to see our father suffering in bed, not to mention, the medical bills are over 1,000 a day. Why don't you negotiate a private settlement with Meng Wanqiu? If our family doesn't pursue Ran Yao's assault, and she minimizes the issue, it might just resolve. Lucien gritted his teeth, caught in a long struggle. His gaze fell on our father, filled with anger and helplessness, resenting him for tarnishing his idol, yet blaming himself for not waking up earlier to prevent the tragedy. if his father were branded as a rapist, what would his future hold as the son of a rapist? Finally, he made up his mind and confronted Meng Wanqiu on her way back to school. He thought it would require a lot of persuasion, but to his surprise, the goddess agreed on the spot. Asking only that the charges against Ranyao be dropped, Lu Xian's feelings were mixed, and despite her forgiveness, his expression hardly improved as he loudly vented his dissatisfaction. Why do you like him so much? What's so good about him that you would make such a big sacrifice? Meng Wanqiu's expression darkened instantly. Didn't she want to send that disgusting man to jail for life? Didn't she want to strip Lumu of his skin and scatter his ashes? But what could she do now that it had happened? Once the police started investigating, it would inevitably lead back to her, harming herself as much as her enemy. Why bother? Ranyao's future was meant to soar. He couldn't afford any blemishes or face expulsion from the school. She was willing to endure the injustice for now, waiting for the day Ranyao would achieve great success. Crushing this family is no different than crushing bugs. It won't be long before that day comes. Yao is a genius. Once she graduates and sets up her company, she will be greeted with endless wealth and an elevated social status. Why should she bother entangling herself with these lowly people, wallowing in the mud? She holds a treasure in her hands, and her future is promising. The gossip that shook the school eventually ended with a settlement between the two families. Meng Wanqiu publicly claimed that on that day, she had taken some medicine and drank a bit of alcohol, which caused her to hallucinate. And it was all a misunderstanding. Although the law no longer pursued Ranyao's responsibility, his involvement in a fight that resulted in serious injury violated school rules and regulations. He was not expelled, but he received a major demerit, and along with it, his scholarship and eligibility to compete in the national science and technology competition were revoked. When the instructor handed me the registration form for the science competition, I gladly signed my name. Thank you, teacher. I will do my best to bring honor to the academy. The school leaders originally had you in mind from the start. I don't know what got into you, recommending Ranyao instead. Now, after all the twists and turns, it's back to you. It's all fate. Don't disappoint us. Okay, in my previous life, fate did not favor me. Ranyao shone in the competition, receiving offers from multiple companies, and he was proud of this achievement for a long time. Even believing that his abilities were on par with mine. Even years later, when he had become the admired director Ran, he would still occasionally boast about this achievement. After all, it was the only time in Ranyao's career that he beat me. Even though I didn't participate in the competition, he felt that it was because my abilities weren't recognized by the academy, while I represented the school in the competition in the capital. My roommate continuously updated me on Ranyao and Meng Wanqiu's activities. Unable to bear the school's rumors, the two moved out of the school and rented a place together. Meng Wanqiu still hadn't kicked her habit of being extravagant, unwilling to compromise even slightly on her quality of life. To satisfy her, Ranyao neglected to look for a proper internship and instead returned to his old job of fighting in underground boxing rings, coming home injured every night. Unfortunately, his efforts not only failed to earn a word of comfort from his girlfriend, but instead resulted in her hysterical accusations. How can you earn such disgraceful money? Aren't you studying computer science? Go start a company, make games, and earn big money. Do you want us to end up living in a basement, unseen by the sun, leading a poor life like your parents? Ranyao's expression darkened frighteningly. Disgraceful, poor. The fatigue and dissatisfaction that had been accumulating day by day, along with the frustration of being cuckolded and unable to retaliate, exploded in that moment. Did you just realize I'm poor today? The money you despise so much supported me through high school and got me into college. If you look down on my parents so much, why did you get together with me in the first place? Oh, I almost forgot. When I confessed to you on the basketball court, you said I wasn't worthy of you. Later, for some reason, you suddenly changed your mind. It was as if he suddenly remembered something, a trace of confusion flashing in his eyes. Could it be because of Lu Mu? Once doubt sets in between people, trust collapses faster than a volcanic eruption. Meng Wanqiu grabbed Ranyao's hand, panicked and at a loss, desperately trying to defend herself. Of course not. When I rejected you back then, I just wanted to test you. Yao, you are talented. Don't waste it in unworthy places. Don't worry about the money. I'll figure it out. You just focus on starting your business. The two embraced again, but this time, both had their own agendas. Several times the Meng family tried to take their daughter home, but Meng Wanqiu sternly refused. Even when threatened by her father with disownment and her mother sobbed as if she was about to kneel right then and there. nothing could stop the young lady from nurturing her potential. The first game I developed was successfully launched online through Farlight Group, and upon its release, it received an enthusiastic response with a pleasing increase in download numbers. With the experience accumulated from my past life and an understanding of the psychology of the youth, the success of this new game was expected. However, when the first share of the profits hit my account, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep all night, even though in my previous life my fortune far exceeded this amount, and even later, when I drew a monthly salary of $3,000 to $4,000 just for the sake of experiencing the joy of receiving a paycheck. None of those moments were as thrilling as holding my phone and seeing the deposit now. From now on, every penny I earn won't have to be shared with Ranyao. I am me, he is he, and never again will our names be linked together. My mind is full of countless ideas and designs, but he, burdened with punishment and missing opportunities time and again. And with Meng Wanqiu, who dreams daily of a luxurious life by his side, how far can he really go? Winning the national design competition brought glory to the school, not only adding a significant achievement to my resume but also directing the best resources of the academy towards me. When the vice president of Farlight Group sent me a congratulatory message, I was in the process of selecting an apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom with a north to south layout and excellent sunlight and views. Importantly, this location was set to be redeveloped into a commercial street in a few years, promising a threefold return, a sure win. Lu Xian, somehow hearing the news of my house purchase, blocked me with his adoptive parents at the company entrance. It turns out, Meng Wanqiu, despite being at a dead end, couldn't curb her extravagant spending habits, treating him like Ranyao's ATM. Not wanting to lose face in front of his goddess, Lu Xian borrowed heavily across various platforms, eventually even resorting to usurers, accumulating a total debt of $500,000 as interest compounded. When debt collectors came knocking, threatening to cut off fingers as interest if he didn't pay within 3 days, his elderly adoptive parents, who saw him as their hope for the future, couldn't bear the thought of seeing their son maimed and turned their sights on me. "You sneaky girl, buying a house without telling us, quickly transfer it to your brother's name and take out $500,000 to help pay the debt," I scoffed, looking at them coldly as if they were strangers. "What brother? Didn't you sever our adoption ties when I turned 18? After all, the state stops providing subsidies to adult orphans." They wanted to make more trouble, but were directly dragged out by security. Unexpectedly, the adoptive family, frightened by the debt collectors, hid here and there, and everything of value in their home was emptied. In desperation, the adoptive father kidnapped Meng Wanqiu, hoping the Meng family would pay to redeem their daughter and cover his online loan losses. Unfortunately, the Meng family had already been swept up in a debt crisis, with houses and cars, all tangible and intangible assets, completely seized and auctioned by the court. In his previous life, before the financial chain broke, Meng's father sent Meng Wanqiu abroad under the guise of studying overseas, carrying a large amount of laundered money, allowing her a few more years of splendor until she returned to the country broke and caught the attention of the nouveau riche Ranyao. This time, Meng Wanqiu's obstinate decisions led to the Meng family's downfall faster and more fiercely than remembered. The adoptive father, having stolen a car from a repair shop and managing to avoid public eyes, took Meng Wanqiu to an abandoned warehouse, only to find out about the Meng family's bankruptcy and their inability to help themselves. In a fit of rage, he took out his anger on Meng Wanqiu. After being tormented all night, Meng Wanqiu finally found a chance to escape at dawn. As he sped away in the car, he never anticipated that the brakes would fail and crash directly into the bridge railing. I saw her again half a month later, after being in a coma for half a month. Meng Wanqiu woke up paralyzed from the waist down, destined to spend her life in a wheelchair. Standing at the door of the hospital room, I heard her wretched cries and remembered waking up in a hospital bed in my past life, being told that my eyes were severely damaged and that I would never see again. My feelings at that time were no different from hers now. What goes around, comes around. It seemed she was atoning for her sins from a past life. I was about to leave when I overheard a conversation between Meng Wanqiu and Ranyao in the hospital room. "Your paralysis is your karma." The man's voice was cold and devoid of emotion, the kind only someone accustomed to commanding authority could possess. From just this one sentence, I knew he had changed. I stopped in my tracks, a myriad of emotions suddenly flooding my heart, all converging into a storm inside me. Meng Wanqiu slowly lifted her head from the hospital bed, her eyes trembling like an earthquake as she looked at Ranyao a few steps away. "Ranyao, when did you come back?" The vacant look in the man's eyes before her suddenly brought back memories of the past. In the days following Lu Mu's death, his gaze towards her was just like it was now, so close, yet seemingly miles away. It was as if she was awakening from a dream, trying to bridge the gap between them. She attempted to get out of bed, but her legs failed to respond, and inertia threw her off the bed. Despite her disheveled appearance, Meng Wanqiu propped herself up on her arms, trying to crawl towards Ran Yao. The man simply stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Don't touch me, you disgust me, Ran Yao, you can't treat me like this," she pleaded, looking up at him with a voice full of misery. "I haven't wronged you in this life, I'm the one by your side now." Ran Yao lowered his eyes and laughed mockingly. "Can living another life negate the sins of the past? Ask Lu Mu if she would agree. Ask if she can forgive you for blinding her and causing her death." After saying this, he ignored Meng Wanqiu's pleas, turned around, and pushed open the hospital door, his gaze meeting mine directly. At that moment, my heart was a whirlwind of emotions and memories from before my death. Indeed, Meng Wanqiu had played a part in my demise. Merely being paralyzed was far from enough. If I had any doubts about Ran Yao in this life before, they completely dissipated from that moment. From that day on, Ran Yao began to appear frequently by my side. He waited madly at my home, my company, and all the places I often visited, from early morning till dusk, from late autumn to the winter solstice. Watching him in the pouring rain with a desolate and dejected expression, I remembered how soon after my death in a previous life, he wept and repented at my grave, begging the heavens in the heavy rain for another chance. The two figures overlapped, and I laughed mockingly, feeling it dirted my eyes. A few days later, a disheveled woman caught Ran Yao's arm outside the company building, crying inconsolably. It was Ran Yao's mother, who had abandoned him in his youth to elope with a lover. It can be said that his insecure yet proud character stemmed entirely from this woman. In a previous life, I knew of his deep attachment to his mother. He had used all means in secret to find her whereabouts, but on his way back, he was involved in a serious car accident. Upon seeing the woman, Ran Yao froze in place, his eyes red as he stared at the other person, unable to utter the two words despite his hoarse voice. The woman was clearly agitated too, but her eyes did not show the joy of a long-awaited reunion. Instead, they resembled the soul of a ghost fallen into hell, looking up at the living world. "My child, save your brother, he is my life," she pleaded. After remarrying, Ran Yao's mother's younger son was suffering from kidney failure and lay in the hospital in urgent need of a transplant. She had repeatedly tried to find Ran Yao's whereabouts through contacts back in their hometown, but to no avail. Just as she was about to give up, I found her, not only providing her with some money for medical expenses but also Ran Yao's address. She obeyed me as if I were a deity. When she appeared after many years, the first words she spoke were not to ask how he had been over the years but to request a kidney donation for a brother he had never met. For Ran Yao, who had always been proud and longed for maternal love, this was more torturous than death by 1,000 cuts. I knew how demanding that woman could be, whether it was to repay the debt of birth or to sever this karmic tie. Ran Yao had no choice but to donate his kidney. When Ran Yao woke up from the anesthesia, he saw me waiting in the operating room and tried to get up excitedly, holding the post-operative care instructions. I glanced at him. "The doctor said that donating a kidney will damage kidney function, and your immunity and metabolism won't be as good as normal people's," I informed him. Ran Yao was silent for a long time before he whispered, "It doesn't matter." I chuckled. "Indeed, a silver-plated spearhead. No big difference. Everything is your karma." Ran Yao looked at me, his eyes a tangled mess of emotions, suddenly unraveling as if awakening from a deep dream. "Xiao Mu, you." Tears filled his eyes instantly, a look of regret at the bottom. I'm sorry for what I've done to you." His voice trembled violently, his chest heaving as he reached out to touch me. I stood still, repeating like it was a joke, "Don't touch me, dirty." Ran Yao's voice dried up. He closed his eyes in pain, as if my words had uncovered his most unbearable past. "You won't forgive me, will you?" I looked at him coldly, the irony in my eyes nearly spilling over, then pushed open the door and left straight away. Behind me, alarms soon sounded. Doctors and nurses hurried to the room as the patient's post-surgery emotional disturbance had caused him to faint again. On the hospital rooftop, the wind was strong as I leaned back in a lounge chair, waiting for Meng Wanqiu to wake up. In just a month, Meng Wanqiu seemed to have aged 10 years, her figure dramatically thinner, due to the lack of funds for a caretaker and constant delays in paying hospital bills. The nurses showed no kindness to her. She opened her eyes groggily from her stupor, lowering her head to see her feet hanging dozens of meters in the air, which terrified her so much that her voice became hoarse like a duck's. afraid to exert any force lest she accidentally fall to her death. Wake up, the view from the rooftop is indeed splendid, no wonder you and Ranyao liked to meet secretly here. Meng Wanqiu turned her head and froze upon seeing me. It's you, I nodded, propping up my chin as I assessed her. Yes, it's me. Surprised, memories flooded back in an instant, and like a moth stepping into a trap, Meng Wanqiu finally realized the danger when she became ensnared in the web. You tricked me. You've always had memories of your past life. Meng Wanqiu's voice grew shrill. It's you who turned me into this hideous, ghostly figure. You want to monopolize Ranyao. Wasn't it enough to benefit from him in your past life? This life you still compete with me. I irritably dug at my ears, then pushed the wheelchair forward half a step, thankfully quieting the shrill voice. Ranyao is in the emergency room downstairs. If he survives, I'll definitely attend your wedding. I meant it sincerely, but Meng Wanqiu didn't believe me. What have you done to Ranyao? Are you crazy? If he dies, you'll be doomed to poverty all your life. I laughed as if I'd heard a joke. How could that be? I have a house and a car, a promising future ahead, and my new company will be approved next month. The first round of financing, 10 million, has already been secured. It's from my former employer, Yuan Guang. Did you not know that? It can't be. It can't be. Meng Wanqiu acted crazily, tearing at her hair. Forgetting her disabled legs, she reached out to stand and hit me. But she fell harshly to the ground, her head bleeding profusely, and she passed out. Lu Xian visited Meng Wanqiu in the hospital several times and later brought her back home. The goddess he once adored had now transformed into this sorry state, and Lu Xian felt no sympathy for her whatsoever. His foster father was arrested and jailed for kidnapping and abuse, while his foster mother, fearing debt collectors due to high-interest loans, had run off early on. Meng Wanqiu thought that Lu Xian still had feelings for her and was taking care of her out of affection, which made her quite pleased with herself. Unexpectedly, one evening, a group of people stormed into our house. Lu Xian humbly accepted a stack of banknotes from their hands and then handed over Meng Wanqiu to them. It was much later that I learned from Lu Xian, who had been arrested by the police, that he had sold Meng Wanqiu to a circus. At that place, disabilities were used as a gimmick to make money, and deformed women with any trace of beauty were particularly popular among the audience. When I left the police station, the sunlight was brilliant. My future, too, seemed like frost meeting the warm sun, my heart like plants, growing towards the light. Story 2. After my death, Xing Yan burned a lot of money for me every year. This led me to develop a habit of lavish spending in the underworld. Then suddenly one day, he stopped. I waited and tried to enter his dreams multiple times to no avail, finally confirming that he had forgotten about this matter. Having never thought to save money before, I accrued a massive debt in the underworld to maintain my usual lifestyle. In a fit of anger, I shockingly came back to life. 01. Of course, I didn't actually come back to life. Rather, the king of hell, fearing I wouldn't be able to repay the debt, made an exception to let me return briefly. So, calling on Oxhead and Horseface, they crafted for me a body identical to my previous one. Having not been human for several years, suddenly having a physical form again felt quite odd. Frantically, I rushed to the human world straight to Xing Yan's villa. However, I was stopped by the security guards. They told me that a Xing family lived here, but no one named Xing Yan. Perhaps seeing my disheveled and pitiful state, they sympathetically gave me a business card and suggested I call the person listed on it. It took some effort to track down that person. The place I ended up at was a 5-star hotel, seemingly hosting an engagement ceremony, but when I saw the man on the poster at the entrance, I froze. Xing Yan was getting engaged to someone else. Well, it made sense. I had been dead for 5 years, and him moving on was normal, but even so, he shouldn't have forgotten to send me money. He had no idea how expensive things were in the underworld. His family ran a large business, surely they could spare a little to support my afterlife extravagance. I remembered how I had died, trembling in pain in his arms. As Xing Yan wept uncontrollably, I mustered all my strength to utter my last words. Remember to burn more money for me each year. Considering I died because of you, I was an orphan and had dated Xing Yan for years without marrying. I was genuinely afraid of being penniless after death. Only after seeing him nod did I close my eyes in peace. Now, just a few years later, has he forgotten the dead because of his new love? Furious, I wanted to confront Xing Yan when suddenly a clear male voice came from behind me. Are you looking for me? 02. I turned around and saw a young man in his 20s, tall and handsome, and somewhat familiar looking. Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued, Uncle Chen called, saying you went to the Xings looking for me. Only then did I realize that he was probably the person on the business card. I scratched my head sheepishly, looking at the poster of Xingyan, and said, "Yes, but I've already found who I was looking for. You're talking about my uncle." I was stunned. "Xingyan is your uncle?" "Yes, he's quite busy today. I'll take you inside, and he can meet you after he's done." He then led me inside. "What's your name?" "Xinglai. And you?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "Song Tao." I'm not sure if it was my imagination, but upon hearing my name, Xinglai stiffened for a moment before quickly returning to normal. He took me to a private room on the second floor, away from the crowd in the main hall. The room's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire ceremony stage. After the host's speech, the bride and groom, under everyone's gaze, slowly made their entrance. There, after 5 years, I saw Xingyan again. He was nearly 30 now, time leaving no trace on his face, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, made him look even more mature and charming. If I remember correctly, his fiancée by his side is the daughter of the Shin family. Initially, both families wanted them to marry, but Xingyan insisted on being with me, a real-life Cinderella. This even caused the old man of the Xing family to be hospitalized in anger. Unexpectedly, after 5 years, Xingyan ended up with Shening. Knowing this would happen, why bother in the first place? At the peak of the atmosphere, someone in the crowd shouted, "Kiss!" I leaned against the glass window, watching the couple in the center of the crowd, and couldn't help but hold my breath. On the way here, I had considered this possibility, but seeing it with my own eyes still made my heart ache terribly. Reason told me I shouldn't feel this way. Xingyan has the right to embrace a new life. I came back just wanting him to spend money on me. What am I really doing? Sensing something was off, Xinglai leaned over and saw me crying, immediately at a loss. "What's wrong with you? If there's something to say, please don't cry first." I didn't want to cry either. I don't know why I couldn't control my emotions. Helplessly, I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, just too moved." "Really? Is that really it?" Xinglai seemed skeptical. I nodded. "Your uncle and your aunt are so well matched. I haven't seen such a festive atmosphere in a long time. I was moved to tears by accident." Xinglai paused, then asked, "By the way, I haven't asked you yet. What do you need from my uncle?" By then, Xingyan and Shening began to toast the guests. I watched the scene, my hand unconsciously tapping on the glass of the window. "Actually, it's nothing special. I just wanted to ask him a few questions. I think my uncle won't be free for a while." "Why don't you tell me, and I'll pass it on?" I turned around, looked at Xinglai with an evasive gaze, and asked, "You don't want me to meet your uncle, do you?" Xinglai didn't expect me to be so direct. He smiled awkwardly and explained, "Not exactly. It's just that today is his engagement day after all. It's best not to disturb him." I guessed Xinglai probably knew something, but on second thought, he was right. Coming from the underworld, I shouldn't disturb Xingyan on such a joyous day to ask why he hasn't offered me paper money. I should have been more considerate. "Sorry for the disturbance." I left those words and quickly exited the room. As I reached the hotel entrance, Xinglai followed me out. "You haven't had your meal. Why leave so soon?" "I'm not trying to rush you away, don't misunderstand." Looking at this boy who couldn't even hide his thoughts, I found it quite amusing and decided to tease him. "I actually don't need to eat," to which Xinglai replied, "Then where do you live? I can arrange a hotel for you." I was a bit lost following his train of thought, but he raised a good question. "Where should I stay tonight?" Lord Yama only gave me 3 days, and if things don't work out with Xingyan, I might have to rely on Xinglai here. I don't want to stay in a hotel. "Can I stay at your place?" I don't know why Xingyan gave that villa to Xinglai, but I really wanted to go back and see. The most loving years of our lives were spent there. Xinglai was clearly frightened. "What on earth do you want?" he asked. "Xinglai, you know me, right? Are you afraid that I'll ruin your uncle's engagement? If that's the case, you should keep a closer eye on me," I countered. I wasn't sure what Xinglai was thinking, but he indeed brought me back to the villa. Everything here remained much the same. The painting I had done with my own hands still hung in its original place. For some reason, I suddenly remembered that Xingyan once mentioned that a friend of his really liked my painting. I thought his friend had good taste, so I decided to personally paint a landscape for him, but I died before I could finish the painting. Ever since then, in the underworld, I've regretted not finishing that painting sooner. Now that I've finally come back, I want to finish what I started. I confidently headed to the room at the far south end of the second floor. Just as I was about to turn the doorknob, Xinglai immediately stopped me. "You can sleep anywhere but this room. I just want to take a look. Even looking is not allowed. My uncle doesn't let anyone touch anything in there." including me. He won't know if you don't tell him. It's not allowed, period. Xinglai was very firm this time. Fearing I would persist with the room, he pulled me away, no matter how I tried to explain. He wouldn't budge. He really infuriated me. Why are you so stubborn? Only if my uncle agrees. But you don't want me to see your uncle, do you? Who knows what you're really up to, Xinglai, you really oh. Before I could finish, a sudden ring of the doorbell cut me off. Standing by the door, I opened it irritably. Who is it? But what I saw was Xingyan's face. Our eyes met. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Xingyan stared at me, motionless. His eyes held too many emotions for me to discern. Xinglai was the first to recover, pulling me behind him and asking with a guilty conscience, "Uncle, what brings you here?" Xingyan was aggressive as soon as he spoke. "Tell me, who is she?" By then, Xinglai had calmed down. "What do you think, uncle?" Xingyan seemed to realize something, staggering a few steps back. "If it's not her, why does she look so much like her?" Hearing this, Xinglai couldn't help but glance at me. If I remember correctly, we had never met before, but I'm sure Xinglai knew about me, just then. As Xinglai let his guard down, Xingyan quickly rushed over to me and grabbed my wrist. Xinglai tried to stop him but was kicked out the door by Xingyan. With a bang, the door closed again. Now, it was just me and Xingyan in the room. After a brief silence, Xingyan looked me over again. "What's your name?" he asked. I lowered my eyelids to avoid his gaze and replied, "My name is Jiang Wan." He now had a new life. I shouldn't disturb it, since I would be leaving soon anyway. I might as well keep it from him, Xingyan scoffed. Even the voice is exactly the same. "Tell me, who sent you?" I looked up in surprise, realizing that he only saw me as someone who resembled Song Tao. That was probably for the best. Fearing he might detect something off, I chose to remain silent. However, the more Xingyan stared at me, the more agitated he became. Gripping my shoulders, he demanded, "Who allowed you to transform into her likeness? What exactly are you after? Answer me." He pushed me against the wall, my back throbbing from the impact, yet I couldn't escape his grasp. Just then, Xinglai, who had just climbed through the window, witnessed the scene. He pulled Xingyan away, fuming. "The engagement party isn't even over, and here you are, abandoning your fiancé to come here. What exactly were you hoping for? Wasn't it you who personally sent that person to the crematorium?" Xingyan appeared as if he had heard something terrifying. His body trembled slightly, and he no longer dared to look at me. Quickly fleeing the villa, watching his retreating figure, a wave of sorrow washed over me. After Xingyan left, Xinglai's tone was no longer as polite as before. "Why are you impersonating Song Tao?" he asked harshly. I steadied my emotions, met his gaze squarely, and countered, "How can you be so sure that I'm impersonating?" We locked eyes for a moment before he looked away first. "I don't care whether you're impersonating or not. Just don't try to approach my uncle again. He has had a tough time in recent years, barely recovering from a serious illness. I'm begging you, if it's money, a house, or a car you want, I can give it to you. Just please leave my uncle alone." I caught my breath. When did he fall ill? About 2 years ago. It was on and off, and he was sick for nearly a year. During that time, Shining took care of him, and they decided to get engaged after he recovered. So that was it. Xingyan hadn't burned offerings for me because he was ill. Honestly, I also blame myself for not being more prepared, always thinking about how I didn't enjoy life enough when I was alive, and once dead, I would splurge to my heart's content, buying villas and luxury cars without a second thought, and even keeping a bunch of handsome servants, having no business sense, yet still trying to get involved, not even understanding how to deal with people, let alone the resentful spirits in the underworld. By the time I realized things were going downhill, I was already trapped. Now that Xinglai had brought it up, I wasn't going to be polite when I asked for a significant amount of underworld currency. His expression looked as if he had seen a ghost. Well, wasn't I a ghost? If it weren't for the useless offerings I burnt for myself, I would have asked for real money. Nevertheless, Xinglai did as I requested. 2 hours later, he returned with a trunk full of underworld money. He dumped the money on the ground in the yard, then without looking up, he asked, "You should at least tell me who these are for, right? Otherwise, the intended recipient won't receive them." "Song Tao," I said calmly. Stating my own name, Xinglai stood up, shock apparent in his eyes. "You can't possibly be the real Song Tao." Sitting on the bench, watching the flickering flames, I smiled. "Exactly, didn't I already tell you?" Xinglai crouched beside me, his face full of confusion. "So, are you dead or not? What do you think? Then why didn't you tell my uncle just now? Why are you confused again? You want him to be happy, and of course, so do I. Xinlai hugged his knees. Burying her face in the crook of her arm, her voice sounded muffled. I'm sorry for missing you like that. I looked at the person beside me who seemed to be blaming himself, lifted my hand to ruffle his hair, and said in a light-hearted manner, "What are you thinking about? I should actually thank you for burning all that money for me. When I return to the underworld and repay my debts, let's see who dares to look down on me." Xinlai had almost burned through all the paper money he bought. Maybe the king of hell will summon me back earlier once he receives the money. After a moment's thought, I spoke up, "Can you tell me what's been happening with Xingyan these past few years?" But before Xinlai could reply, a deep voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Why don't you ask me directly?" Xinlai and I both stood up and turned around, only to find Xingyan, who had returned, under the streetlight. His gaze was fixed on me. I didn't know how much he had heard, and instinctively, I moved behind Xinlai. Xinlai sensed my intention and shifted slightly, but didn't stop me. Seeing this, a pained expression crossed Xingyan's eyes. "Who allowed you to burn paper money at my villa?" "I'm sorry, uncle," Xinlai began to explain, but Xingyan brushed past him and approached me. Though he was looking at me, his words were meant for Xinlai. "Chen just sent a message. Your best friend was hit by a car and is now in the hospital." Upon hearing this, Xinlai immediately reached for his phone in his pocket, found the number, and dialed, but there was no answer. He hurriedly prepared to leave but then suddenly remembered I was still there. I gave him a reassuring smile. "Go and see him. Don't worry about me." With a conflicted look, Xinlai glanced at Xingyan, thought for a moment, and finally left with a plea, "Uncle, don't drive her away." As soon as Xinlai left, Xingyan grabbed me and pulled me inside the house. The moment the door closed, he eagerly began tugging at my clothes. I was frightened by this aggressive side of Xingyan, desperately covering my neckline, pleading with him, "Don't do this, Xingyan, I'm scared." But it was as if he couldn't hear me, easily pinning my hands above my head, then ripping open my neckline to reveal a large expanse of my collarbone. The air chilled the exposed skin, causing me to shudder involuntarily. I tried to struggle, but Xingyan suddenly stopped. His gaze finally settled on a red mole below my collarbone. Was he verifying if I was really Song Tao? I thought annoyedly. The guardians of the underworld are too meticulous. Xingyan used to love kissing me there, saying it was sexy. I didn't expect him to remember. His warm fingertips trailed across my skin, and almost instantly, Xingyan's eyes reddened. "Ah Tao, it's you. It really is you." His face was filled with the joy of regaining something precious. Trembling as he pulled me into his embrace, "My Ah Tao is back. My Ah Tao is back," he murmured repeatedly, sending shivers through my heart. "Xingyan, please stop. I will have to leave soon." "Really?" After a moment, Xingyan looked up. "Leave? Go where?" "Back to where I came from, of course. You know better than anyone that it's impossible for me to still be alive." Hearing my words, Xingyan's emotions, which had just settled, erupted again. "So what if you are a ghost? I still want to keep you by my side." He said this and then picked me up and carried me upstairs. "Xingyan, put me down." I kept pounding on his body, yelling anxiously, "Xingyan, have you forgotten what day it is today? Your fiancé is waiting for you at home. You shouldn't be here." Xingyan stopped in his tracks. "So, the figure I saw at the hotel today was indeed you?" "That's not the point." He looked down at me, a bitter smile on his lips. "Don't worry, I'm just taking you to change your clothes." I didn't expect that Xingyan had kept all my belongings from before. He handed me a brand new suit. "Sorry, I haven't updated these in 2 years. They're all old styles. You'll just have to wear this." Suddenly, I remembered my childhood in the orphanage, wearing second-hand clothes collected from elsewhere. Other kids dreamt of growing up to do great things, but my dream was just to have a beautiful dress. Later, when I was with Xingyan, I told him this story as a joke. From then on, every season change, he would bring home the latest clothes for me to choose from. Taking the clothes from his hand, I remembered the 2 years he mentioned. I couldn't help but ask, "Why did you get sick?" "You promised me you'd take care of yourself." Xingyan leaned against the cupboard door, focusing intently on me. "Can't I get sick from missing you?" I sighed. "I'm not joking." Xingyan, serious, replied, "Neither am I." I asked again, "Did Xinglai's brother really have a car accident?" Xingyan straightforwardly said, "I lied to him." "You?" Xingyan pulled me into his arms, his tone somewhat aggrieved. "You didn't come back just to talk about this, did you?" Indeed, before seeing him, I had a lot of things I wanted to tell him, but upon seeing him, I suddenly felt that many things didn't need to be said. "Go back. Shening is waiting for you." Don't let me ruin your relationship. Suddenly, Xingyan became stubborn, holding me tight and refusing to let go. No, I won't go back. There's no real feeling between her and me, he said, lowering his head to try to kiss me. I was instantly furious. Pushing him away, Xingyan, how could you do this, if you chose to get engaged to her? Even if you don't like her, you should remain loyal. Xingyan let go of me, a harsh expression crossing his face. Why do you think I got engaged to her? Song Tao, do you still remember how you died? I do remember how I died, 5 years ago. To get back at Xingyan, a business rival hired kidnappers to abduct me. They demanded 50 million. At that time, the Xing family, to keep Xingyan and me apart, restricted his finances tightly, to gather enough money to save me. Xingyan nearly died in front of his grandfather. 3 days later, he arrived with the money. He thought he could save me, but in front of Xingyan, the kidnappers slit my throat. Xingyan held me as he cried his heart out. I died in his arms, not knowing whether those kidnappers were ever caught. If Xingyan says so, could there be more to my death? What are you trying to say? Xingyan lit a cigarette in front of me and slowly began to speak. After the kidnappers were caught, they immediately confessed to the crime, but I could never understand why they didn't just take the money and run. Why go to such lengths? Over the years, I've been investigating secretly. A year ago, I discovered that Shining had secretly contacted the family of the kidnappers. My engagement to her was only to get closer to her and gather more evidence to avenge you. I remember they kidnapped me, repeatedly claiming they were instructed by Xingyan's enemies. Could there really be someone so foolish as to expose their own family like that, or did they never intend to let me live from the start? I don't know, and I don't have the time to find out. I had no dealings with Shining. I barely even saw her face. I can't think of any reason why she would want to harm me. No, all I want is for Xingyan to be well. I took the cigarette from his fingers and decisively snuffed it out. This is all just your speculation. What if it wasn't her doing? It's been so long, it won't be easy to uncover the truth. Xingyan watched my swift actions, momentarily lost in thought. I always wanted him to smoke less. Every time he lit up, I would put it out. After a few times, he would give in, sometimes playfully kissing me with his smoke-flavored lips. I had no way to counter him, so I decided to fight fire with fire. After eating durian, I insisted on kissing him. Unexpectedly, he not only didn't mind, but almost kissed me breathless. Remembering all these things made me even sadder. I secretly wiped away a tear, perhaps sensing my movement. Xingyan came back to his senses. Whether it is true or not, the day will come when the truth will out. I hesitated, then said, if, and I mean if, it has nothing to do with her, then Yan, you should be with her. Xingyan looked at me and asked coldly, who are you to make decisions for me? That night, we parted on bad terms. I thought I would wake up back in the underworld. But I was still in the villa. Xingyan refused to go back last night, so I sent him to the guest room. In the morning, I found that he had already made breakfast. I looked around and shamelessly took a seat at the dining table. To ease the awkwardness, I casually asked, didn't Xinglai come back last night? As Xingyan was about to push a sandwich towards me, he paused upon hearing my question. Are you that concerned about him? I pulled the half-pushed sandwich in front of me and smiled, saying, isn't he your nephew? It's only normal for me to show some concern on your behalf, right? Unsaid yet evident, Xingyan's culinary skills had indeed improved. Not a blood relative. What? He was a child adopted by my father. I remembered, Xingyan once told me that he had an older brother who passed away young due to illness. Later, overwhelmed by grief, the old master of the Xing family adopted another child from elsewhere to alleviate his longing. In that sense, Xinglai and I were both orphans. However, he was much luckier than me. Just as I was thinking, Xinglai called. Seeing me craning my neck, Xingyan turned on the speakerphone. I thought Xinglai was going to confront Xingyan about deceiving him the night before, but instead, it turned out that the old master of the Xing family had been hospitalized. After learning that Xingyan had left Shining at the engagement banquet the day before, the old man had been so angry that he fell ill. Xingyan had to rush to the hospital immediately. Before leaving, he asked me to wait for him at home, promising he would be back soon. I nodded in agreement, and 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Thinking that Xingyan had forgotten something, I quickly opened the door, only to find Shining standing outside. He really has someone else, Shining blurted out, intending to barge in, but when she saw my face clearly, she shuddered in fright, her voice breaking. Ah! Aren't you supposed to be dead? Are you a ghost? With my arms crossed, I slowly approached her, a slight smirk on my lips. Why don't you guess if I'm a person or a ghost? Ah, holding her head, Shining screamed hysterically, "Ghost! Ghost, don't come any closer, help!" Watching her stumbling figure running away, I couldn't help but wonder, why was Shining so afraid of me? I thought about it for a moment, then decided not to bother with this question anymore. I strutted into the room that Xinglai had kept me out of the day before. Pushing open the door, I found it filled with things I had used before. Xingyan had arranged everything neatly, and I quickly found the unfinished landscape painting, with nothing else to do. I spread out the paper and started sketching with ink and brush. It wasn't until sunset that I finally completed the painting. I stretched lazily, feeling a sense of accomplishment. After carefully restoring the room to its original state, I opened the door, but the next second, everything went dark as a sack was thrown over my head. Then I was hoisted onto someone's shoulder. This feeling was too familiar. Unforgettable no matter what, but this time, who was kidnapping me? As I was jostled to the point of nausea, the person finally dumped me into a car. I sighed inwardly, not expecting to leave in such a manner. I didn't even have time to leave a note for Xingyan. He would surely worry if he returned and didn't find me. The car drove for about half an hour before stopping. I had no idea of the direction, so I couldn't estimate our location. When the light finally came back, I found myself in a closed room, and there was Shining, the person who had kidnapped me. Wearing a black leather jacket, her face clouded with gloom, far from her usual gentle and gracious image, she pinched my chin, scrutinizing my features. "So, you're not a ghost, right?" I looked at her calmly. Without responding, Shining suddenly burst into laughter. With a confident tone, she declared, "If you were really a ghost, you wouldn't have been caught by me in such a sorry state." But in the next second, her smile faded, and she tightened her grip, her sharp nails digging into my skin. "Who exactly are you? I've searched all day and found nothing about you," I responded with a nonchalant expression. "So, Miss Shin caught me just to find out who I am." Shining scrutinized me with contempt and arrogantly said, "It doesn't matter if you don't tell me, whether you are her or not. If I could kill you once, I can kill you again." Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning. This meant that Xingyan's guess was right. My previous death was indeed orchestrated by Shining. "Why? I have no grudges against you. Why did you harm me?" "No grudges." Shining laughed as if she had heard the joke of the century. She let go of me and then seemingly pulled out a knife from nowhere. The sharp blade traced my face, her eyes filled with deep hatred. "Because you are the shame of my life." Unfazed, I retorted. "I didn't realize I had such influence. If I'm not mistaken, we only met today, right?" Shining glared at me coldly. "The problem is that you have a face identical to Song Tao's. Just one glimpse of your silhouette was enough for him to abandon me in front of so many people, letting everyone laugh at me." I lowered my head and sighed. "I was wrong yesterday. I accept whatever you do to me, but Song Tao hasn't wronged you. He and Xingyan are each other's first love. They being together hasn't hurt anyone." "What do you know?" Shining suddenly shouted. "I fell for him when I was 15. Everyone around me knew that we were meant to marry, but he chose you, a poor girl who had nothing, over an arranged marriage between the Sheng and Shin families. You wouldn't understand how those people mocked me. They said I wasn't capable enough to keep Xingyan's heart, that I lost to someone inferior to me in every way. How could I accept that?" I spoke with difficulty. "So you had her killed?" "Yes, as long as she was gone, Xingyan would be with me. You saw our engagement party. He organized it himself. If you hadn't suddenly appeared, we would have been married and happy forever. So, only if you disappear again, will Xingyan fall in love with me once more." As Shining spoke, she slowly raised the dagger in her hand, but just then, one of her men rushed in. "Boss, it looks like we've been spotted." Fearing exposure, Shining had no choice but to move me to another location. The car jolted all the way to an abandoned factory, but soon she realized they were exposed again. Cars were approaching from all directions. I glanced down at the safety amulet on my wrist, which I guessed had a tracker. Xingyan must have put it on me in the morning when he left, probably fearing I might sneak away, just in case. I never thought it would come into play here. However, Shining quickly regained her composure, because she learned that the approaching group was not the police. She pulled me over and held the knife to my neck, confidently asserting, "As long as I have you, I can certainly make my escape." I smiled. Normally that would be true, but today she was mistaken. Outside the factory, the roar of a car engine sounded. I knew the moment had come, and deliberately provoked Shining with my words. "Do you think it's Xingyan coming? Do you think he will still love you after seeing this scene?" "Shining, you are truly pitiable. You have everything one could want, living a life most can't imagine. Yet you chase after a heart that isn't yours. You are nothing but a foolish pig, a pitiful creature, a complete joke. Shut up. Xing Ying's face twisted in anger at my words. She viciously pushed the knife closer to my neck. Seizing the moment, I leaned into the sharp blade, using her force against her. Determined not to die so easily, I jerked my neck back and forth across the blade until intense pain surged. Xining froze as she realized what I was doing, watching as blood spurted out, splashing onto her face and body. Ah! Xining screamed, her hand shaking uncontrollably with the knife. As the blood flowed more freely, Xining completely lost it and pushed me away in a frenzy. Xing Yan and Xing Lai entered and witnessed the scene. Ah Tao! Xing Yan rushed over to catch me as I nearly fell, his eyes filled with terror. No, it can't be. He desperately pressed his hands over my wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Ah Tao! Hang in there, I'm taking you to the hospital. I reached out to grasp his arm and said, it's no use, I was meant to leave anyway, sooner or later. Xing Yan looked at me, tears falling heavily. Why make me go through losing you twice? Ah Yan, I'm sorry. I tried to lift my hand to wipe his tears, but my strength failed halfway. Xing Yan quickly grasped my falling hand, pressing it against his cheek. Ah Tao, don't leave me. I was finding it hard to breathe now, needing to hurry and settle my affairs. Ah Yan, let go of everything and live well, and don't forget to burn paper money for me. Things are expensive in the underworld. The year you were sick, I had a really tough time down there. Then, I turned my head toward Xing Lai who had restrained Xining and said weakly, take good care of your uncle, or I won't rest even as a ghost. Xing Lai's eyes were red, he opened his mouth to speak but ultimately just nodded. I caressed Xing Yan's face, my eyes filled with longing and my heart full of reluctance. The servants in the underworld are handsome, but none compare to even half of Xing Yan. Oh well, such is this life, everything else must wait for another life. The sound of sirens grew louder in my ears. I smiled knowingly and slowly closed my eyes. After returning to the underworld, I dismissed all the male servants. They were good-looking but useless, only good at spending money. I began to live frugally, saving all the extra money I had. Normally, after death, everyone has to queue in the underworld waiting to be reborn. I have no idea when it will be my turn. I can no longer afford to squander my time as I once did. Lately, a sense of unease has been clouding my mind, affecting my sleep and appetite, filling my days with worry. That was until one day, Xing Lai sent me a letter. He informed me that Xing Yan had properly buried my body. Xining was sentenced to death, and both he and Xing Yan attended the trial. He assured me not to worry about Xing Yan, who has been busy with taking a new company public. Holding his letter, I read it over and over, finally feeling a weight lift off my chest. At the same time, that unease vanished like smoke. I completely trusted Xing Lai's words and even looked forward to his next letter. Sure enough, a few days later, he wrote to me again. This time, he mentioned my painting. 5 years ago, I saw a painting in my uncle's office that I really liked, so I nagged him to introduce me to the artist. He refused, saying at most he could have the artist paint another one for me. I agreed, but waited a long time without ever seeing the painting, and I couldn't help asking him about it several times. My uncle always found excuses, and I complained about him behind his back. Today, I received a painting signed by Song Tao, and I feel I owe my uncle an apology, but I can't tell him. I can only secretly share this with you, and also, I really like your painting. It turns out that Xing Yan's friend was Xing Lai. Truly, the connections between people are mysterious. He helped me, and I could return his kindness in this way. That night, I tried to enter Xing Lai's dream and succeeded. But he didn't seem happy to see me. I poked his sturdy arm and asked, what's wrong? You seem unhappy to see me. Is your uncle not doing well? Xing Lai waved his hands frantically. Not at all. It's just what? My uncle is busy dating Miss Shi from the Yi family, and I was worried you'd be jealous. I put my hands on my hips, indignantly saying, I'm not that petty. If I could enter Xing Yan's dream, I would definitely go and bless him. Xing Lai quickly grabbed me. Please don't. Isn't my uncle hurt enough? I then asked, what's this Miss Shi like? Without a second thought, Xing Lai said, prettier than you. I punched him. I'm not asking about looks. Look at Xining, beautiful but with a heart of a snake. When choosing a partner, character is what's most important. Do you understand? Xing Lai, holding his head, said pitifully, I understand. Just don't bother my uncle anymore. He's doing well now. I waved my hand irritably. Fine. I won't come anymore. Xing Lai hurriedly explained, that's not what I meant. You can come see me. Looking at his earnest face, I tried to smile lightly. I won't come anymore. Take care. I always thought I was different from other ghosts. They could enter other people's dreams, but I never could. I tried to enter Xingyan's dream several times but always failed, even the king of hell couldn't explain why. Eventually, I just gave up, but now, I've come to realize, once dead, one should just pass on peacefully, and never disturb the living. With this thought, I smiled and said goodbye to Xinglai, yet, he stubbornly chased after me, refusing to stop. I was just joking earlier, you just want to know about my uncle, right? Next time you come, I'll tell you about him and Mishi, or anything else you want to hear. I'm willing to share. Song Tao, you promised now, you can't go back on your word, I'll be waiting for you. You said the underworld is expensive, right? I can burn a lot of paper money for you. Watching his figure blur in the distance, I couldn't help but find it amusing. When did I ever agree to this? Kids will be kids, but then again, kids can be deceiving too. Otherwise, how could someone who claims to be doing very well and frequently dates the Yi family's daughter end up at the bridge of helplessness? With a trembling voice, I called out, Ian.